to the, oh. Let me turn it on.
Mike's on. Right on.
Sit.
Down at the bottom.
Is that on? Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the planning meeting of August 18th, 2021. I see that we have enough for a quorum. Do I have a motion to open? Do I have a second? Second, thank you. So again, welcome to the August 18th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At this time, I would request that everyone please turn off or mute all cell phones. Appreciate it. And then if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So applications for conditional use permits requests and rezoning requests we heard during tonight's meeting, and the commission will vote on these applications and make a recommendation to the county council. The applications will then be scheduled to be introduced before the county council meeting at Monday, September 13th, 2021 county council meeting. Public comment for conditional use permit requests will be taken during tonight's meeting and at the council meeting on Monday, September 13th, 2021. Public comment on conditional use permit applications will not be taken at any meeting of the county council held thereafter. Applications for preliminary plats heard during tonight's meeting will also be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission during the meeting. The vote on preliminary plats is final. Only the recommendation for denial of a preliminary plat will be heard before the county council at their Monday, September 13th, 2021 meeting. The following documents are introduced as a matter of record for the evening's public hearing and regular meeting of the Public and Planning and Zoning Commission. The Unified Development Ordinance of the St. Charles County, including zoning maps, and the year 2030 Master Plan for St. Charles County, which includes the year 2030 Future Land Use Map Plan. So, basically how it will work tonight is I'll read the request. The staff will then make their recommendation. At that point, we'll have the applicant come up and they'll give the details of their application, what the specifics are. Then at that point, members of the Planning and Zoning can ask questions. When they've finished that presentation, then members of the public will be able to come up and make comments, or questions or statements, whatever. There's a lot of people here tonight, so just request that if there is something you'd like to comment on, and it's pretty much the same thing other people have, you could certainly welcome the comments, but keep it, on topic if you could. We'd greatly appreciate that. We've got a lot of people here. When you come up, we will swear you in, and if you could please fill out one of these white cards. They're over at the table over here, Marissa, and she will, and they will then be entered into the county record. So with that, we will begin the evening. The first item on the agenda is a rezoning request on Parr Road. The application number is RZ21-13. The property owner is Wilmus Brothers Investments, LLC. The current zoning is A, Agricultural District. The requested zoning is I-1, Light Industrial District. The 2030 Master Plan recommends low-density residential uses, approximately 4.23 acres. The location on the west side of Parr Road, approximately 1,700 feet north of Highway A, adjacent to the city of Wentzville. It's in County Council District 1. Staff.
All right. As mentioned, this property is currently zoned agricultural. Just wonder if we could switch over to the maps. Okay, the property is located right here, just east of a subdivision located within the city of Wentzville, Brookshire Creek. The property is like I mentioned, it's currently zoned agricultural, but it is surrounded to the north, west, and south by the city of Wentzville. And to the east, there is still unincorporated property that is zoned agricultural. Of course, the first thing we usually look at for a rezoning application is the land use plan. And as you can see, this property, while it's adjacent to industrial growth area, it is calling for this to remain low density as it transitions out of the agricultural zoning. As mentioned, it's surrounded by the city of Wentzville. The applicant has mentioned that they have the intent to develop the property with a self-storage facility, a large 6-story self-storage facility, and also outdoor storage for RVs and such, trailers and such. There are no water or sewer access except through the city of Wentzville. And as mentioned, this would require annexation into the city of Wentzville should they need any services. So being that it is in the city's growth area and the land use does not call for industrial development at this property, and being adjacent to residential zoning, staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend denial to the County Council. We did receive 2 letters of opposition. One was from the city of Wentzville, and the other was a private homeowner.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Any questions of staff? Okay, at this moment, we'd ask the applicant to come forward. Thank you.
I'm going to use my left hand.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the public records.
Justin Winters, Premier Design Group, 100 Midland Park Court Drive, Wentzville, Missouri, 63385.
Okay, Justin, go forward.
Thank you.
Robert, can we get somebody to turn the volume up? It's hard to hear there and here. Is there any way we can turn the volume up in the room?
Are you having trouble hearing both?
Him, here. I think with the noise out there, it's difficult for them to hear as well.
Good. Okay. As Ellie so kindly mentioned, this site is approximately 4.3 acres, currently zoned A agricultural, located on Parr Road just north of Highway A. The request is made this evening for your recommendation of approval for a light I-1 light industrial zoning. We feel that this request for zoning is a good use for this property, and the reason we feel this are for several reasons. It is adjacent to the east of an existing residential subdivision that's within the city of Wentzville Zone PDR, but it's also just north of a property of the Carpenters Union, the Carpenters Union Hall that's zoned I-2 heavy industrial, again in the city of Wentzville, also next to Rankin Technical College, also zoned I-2 heavy industrial. The future land use, although it's currently agricultural and within St. Charles County, is for the city of Wentzville to annex this property and have it zoned either I-2 or I-1 industrial uses. With that being said, the majority of the site will be wrapped in either heavy industrial or light industrial use. The north property is currently a Midwest college, and although the current zoning map for the city of Wentzville says A agricultural, their future use calls for a public institutional use, which is the current use of that property. So again, we feel because of the I-2 being adjacent to our south, that an appropriate transition of zoning for this property would be to a light industrial use, then to the current institutional use, and then beyond that to the north to continue with residential use. I've got the county's 2030 master plan here that shows our property highlighted with this dotted box. Again, it's called out for residential use.
Right.
And that would be, I guess, consistent with the subdivision to our west. But then again, looking to our north, the institutional use, looking to the east, industrial use, as well as to the south that already has current I-2 heavy industrial in place. This property right here on the corner of Parr Road and Highway A is zoned I-1 light industrial. This is an image from the city of Wentzville's future use plan. Again, our site's highlighted here with this dotted line. To the north is that institutional use, the public institutional, potentially educational. That's what it's currently being used for. To the east is light industrial zoning. To the south is the RK Stratman, that's currently I-2 heavy industrial. And again, to the south of our property is the Carpenters Union and then Rankin Technical College, both currently zoned I-2 heavy industrial. If I can go back to the 2030 master plan for St. Charles County. I know you guys spend a lot of time, money, and effort to develop these future master plans, but I just don't necessarily agree that this particular property being 4.3 acres in size and then basically going to be surrounded in industrial use is a good lot candidate for residential development. And I don't know if this is an error too, but this portion here calls out for future industrial use. And these are actually currently houses within St. Charles County. So your master plan is well developed, but it may be subject to error, is why I say that. I've got some site photos here. This site's taken from the southeast corner of the property, looking north. In the distance, you can see the Midwest College, and then of course Parr Road to the east. The site's from the southeast corner looking east. This is currently an agricultural farm field, but it is called out to be future industrial use, potentially I-1 or I-2 heavy industrial. This photo is taken from the southeast corner looking south. Again, Parr Road's here to the left, to the east of the property. And this is the Carpenter Unions Hall. This is from the southeast corner of the property looking west. This is the Carpenters Union Hall's parking lot. This is the existing tree line that separates this 4.3 acre site from the adjacent western Brookshire Creek subdivision. Here's another photo kind of taken at an angle facing southwest showing the Carpenter Unions Hall, and then also here in the background, the Rankin Technical College. This site's from the middle of the eastern property line looking west. Again, it just highlights the existing tree line that we would keep in place to separate this developed property from the Brookshire Creek subdivision to the west. This photo's taken from the northeast corner of the property looking south. Again, this is the Carpenter Unions Hall. This is Rankin College. This is taken from the middle of the site looking northwest, and this is the Midwest University College. This picture is taken from the northeast corner of the property looking east. Again, it's that farm field that has the future intent of being developed for industrial purposes. This picture is taken from the northeast corner looking south. Again, this is the Carpenters Union Hall, and you can't see Rankin. And this is from the northeast corner looking west, again, adjacent to the Midwest College.
Okay.
I've got the site plan. This is just conceptual, and we're not here for site plan review or approval, but this would give an idea of what we're looking to achieve. These buildings will all be single-story. There's a total of 6 buildings. There's an indoor climate-controlled building, 1, 2, 3, 4 self-storage buildings. And then the 6th building here will actually be for larger bays for people to be able to park their motorhomes or boats. It will all be enclosed. It'll all be roofed. This will have open bays for the RVs and the boats to be stored. And it will be shielded from both the road and from the residents to the west. We feel that this is also an appropriate use for the fact that subdivisions with their covenants and restrictions do not allow people to store large items such as RVs and boats in their subdivisions. So this location being adjacent and close to residents is actually a service that they're not otherwise provided at this time. I suppose that's it.
Okay, does anybody here have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Robert.
Can I make a quick comment, please? Just for an overview, the air conditioning units for this building are not working correctly. So in order to address that, obviously there's these supplemental units that are in the back. The downside of the supplemental units is they cause noise. And I've just spoken with our staff in terms of our audio-visual, and I've been informed that if they turn up the volume, then we'll start getting feedback. So one way to address that, there's 2 ways. One, we could turn off the air conditioning, supplemental air conditioning, or all of us could speak directly into the microphones and try to get close to the microphones. And so I would recommend the latter, but we could do either one. So I would say that please everyone speak closer to the microphone than they normally would. And then that way also Marisa and others can pick it up for the meeting minutes, because obviously this is recorded and we really, really need the record. The recording is part of the record, both the audio recording and the video recording.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to start over?
I think you're okay. Can you hear me in back? Can you hear me back? Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the Planning and Zoning Committee to the applicant? Okay, seeing none.
Also, too, if I could kind of embellish a little bit, too, on, I guess, the potential design and layout for this development. It's going to be completely autonomous. This day and age, so much is online, so actual renting the units will be done online, also, too, with aid of a kiosk system. So there's no proposed need for any restrooms or utility connections, so there's not an actual need for us at this time to annex into the city of Wentzville. I just wanted to say that for the record.
Okay, thank you. Again, if there's no questions, you can step down. Are there any comments or questions or from the audience here? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Anyone have any discussion I'd like to further on this particular item? Okay, well, can I have then a motion on the property for that's RZ 21-13?
Motion?
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Barr, how do you vote?
No.
Ms. Bamer?
No.
Mr. Carnwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
No.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Ms. Sally?
No.
And chair votes no also. Motion is denied. The next item on the agenda is a rezoning request for 5570 Highway 94 South and Church Road. So just so people are aware, this will be broken up into 3 sections. The first section is strictly about the rezoning. The next part will be about conditional use concerning the conference center and lodging. And then the third will be on the landing field. So it will be going in that order. So the first, again, is application RZ 21-14. The property owner is Edgewood Highway 94, number 1, LLC, and 0 Church Street, LLC. The applicant is the same, Edgewood Highway 94, number 1, LLC, and 0 Church Street, LLC. The current zoning is A, Agricultural District. The requesting zoning is AT, Agricultural Tourist District. The 2030 master plan recommends rural residential uses. The parcel size is approximately 79.39 acres. The location is on the south side of Highway 94 between Church Street and Jackson Street, adjacent to the city of Augusta. It's in County Council District number 2. Staff.
Thank you. Again, the project that we're going to be speaking about tonight is broken up into 3 different parts. And the first part is more conceptual. It concerns the zoning of the property. And then after consideration for zoning, we'll get into the questions of the specifics, uses that are proposed. First, the zoning. The question at hand is this the right place for agricultural tourism district zoning at this location? Just to be clear, there are 2 parcels involved that are about 77 acres. In an earlier version of our staff report, we referred to 3 parcels in error, but there's a small parcel that directly adjoins the church on Highway 94. That small parcel is not included in this application. So we're talking about 2 parcels totaling 77 acres. The purpose, as stated by the applicant, is to facilitate the construction of a conference event lodging center called Hoffman Lodge with related guest services and centered around its location within the Augusta American Viticultural Area, or the AVA. And you might know that Augusta Viticultural Area is the number 1, or the first, I should say, in the United States, is recognized by the federal government. And that was, I think, in the 1960s when that was designated. And so the location of this is within that AVA area. Again, the rezoning request includes the 2 parcels, and the conditional uses we'll be talking about in just momentarily. But the location, as you've indicated, is immediately adjacent to the City of Augusta and within walking distance or bicycling distance of downtown destinations. In fact, the City of Augusta boundaries wraps around this site on 3 different sides. The northern side along the highway frontage is unincorporated St. Charles County, as are the 2 parcels in question. The 2030 future land use map recommends rural residential uses for these 2 specific parcels, and it's adjacent to recommended agricultural tourism land uses. Additionally, in 2012, St. Charles County adopted an agricultural tourism land use plan, and that plan is made part of the record for tonight's meeting. It's included in your packet and is part of the consideration. That agricultural tourism land use plan was an official amendment to the county's 2025 master plan. And the agricultural tourism land use plan includes the subject properties in the agricultural tourism area and designates the location as a future village development. And again, a copy of the plan is attached. In conformance with that plan that was added to our county's master plan, St. Charles County Council in 2013 amended the zoning regulations to create an agricultural tourism district that would implement the goals and objectives of that plan. So with that plan, it's basically wanting to do 2 things. One, preserve the rural character of southwestern St. Charles County, but at the same time allowing a limited amount of commercial uses that are related to agricultural tourism, but in a way that's not going to detract from the rural character of the overall region. So it's wanting to do really both. It's wanting to protect the rural character and allow economic development that's in keeping with that rural setting as well. So the agricultural tourism district regulations, and in fact, this would be the first property in St. Charles County rezoned to this agricultural tourism district zoning. The stated purposes are to provide for agricultural, recreational, wildlife, open space, and farming uses, as well as agricultural or wine-related tourism uses and economic development in a way that protects and preserves agricultural land and open space and discourages premature and dissociated urban development. Also to ensure low concentrations of such uses within the district and adjoining areas so that their rural agricultural character is maintained while allowing these more intensive uses within the district. In order to construct a facility that the applicants are interested in, there's a couple of opportunities under St. Charles County zoning regulations. One would be to rezone this entire site to commercial. If the site were rezoned to commercial, obviously any uses allowed in the commercial zoning district would be allowed by right, or there's certain conditional uses. In other words, it could include a shopping center, it could include, all sorts of commercial uses. Rather than doing that, the applicants have pursued the agricultural tourism district, tourism district zoning, which allows specific types of uses with a conditional use permit, but in a very limited way. What I mean by in a very limited way, no more than 7% of the site can be developed, for instance. The development of the site must occur basically in the middle of the property, except for if you have some existing buildings along the edge, you can reuse those. Those are 2 examples of the lengths that the district regulations go in order to protect the rural character, but at the same time allow a limited amount of specific types of related tourism uses. The district requires a maximum lot size of 40 acres, which this meets, and also requires a minimum of 5 acres of wine grapes being grown on the property, and those 2 standards would be met I mentioned the limitation of the 7% of the total site that can be developed. Also, the agricultural tourism district includes architectural standards, which we don't include for other districts or other uses. And these architectural standards are specific, and honestly, they're rigorous. They include things like minimum roof pitches. There's the exteriors of buildings must be brick, stone, and wood, for instance. We can go into the details of that on the conditional use permits. At this time, we're just talking about the overall zoning. But I would say that the subject property does meet the minimum qualifications for the rezoning to agricultural tourism district. Also, because of the fact that it's not only located within the district, but is complementary in some ways to people being able to walk to destinations within the town of Augusta, and the fact that it's not actually just being plopped out in the middle of, miles from nowhere. It's actually almost integrated, an extension essentially for the city of Augusta. I think there's some benefit there as well. County staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the County Council approve the zoning map amendment. And I would note for everyone that the county has received many communications concerning this and the conditional use permit applications. All of those communications are part of the record. We have some in support, many in opposition, and some communications of concerns. And again, all of those individual written communications are made part of the record.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I have a question. So you said 7% of the land use can be improved. So on this size property, 7% would be roughly about 5.5 acres.
Yeah.
Does that include site improvements too? In other words, does that include parking, any outbuildings, any kind of site improvements? Or is that 7% apply strictly to the full, residential or commercial type of use? What is that 7% detail?
The ordinance is very specific in what's included in the 7%. It includes basically the footprint of all the buildings.
Okay.
It excludes the driveway accessing the building. It excludes walkways and walking paths. Parking lots are partially excluded if they include permeable pavement. In other words, if it includes pavement that lets water soak in, then there's a I'll call it a bonus for that. But it's very specific on how it's calculated.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, we'll ask the applicant to come forward, please.
The mouse will do that, and or the pointer, sure. Oops. Yeah, I'll go mount it, I guess. It's wireless, right? Looks like it. Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for public records.
My name is David Lisinski, and my personal address is 52 High Trails Drive in Eureka, Missouri, 63025.
Okay, go ahead, David.
I think that staff has done a nice job of describing this particular RZ application for rezoning. I do believe also that he was clear in stating that this is a fairly simple process here, the first of three parts. I don't know if I can elaborate too much more with regard to the rezoning, although I'm sure there'll be plenty to speak about on items 2 and 3. What I can reiterate is that the idea is indeed to have this area rezoned in a manner that is already in place for St. Charles County, and that is the agricultural tourism. The owners of these lots are interested in encouraging tourism to this area, which is part of the AT zoning, and also economic development. As you may know, the owners are actually returning to this area, if you will, from their youth. So they do have a special place in their heart for the area, and that's why they are interested in it. As I mentioned, the agricultural tourism zoning, which is a permitted and established protocol for St. Charles County, is what we're seeking, so that the remainder of the intended development can take place.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Does anyone here have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Are there any comments? And if you do have a comment, please fill out the speaker card and come forward. If you do have a comment, please come forward at this time.
Now, I'm rather globally opposed. Do you want me to speak here or after the helipad?
This is about the rezoning.
This is specifically about the rezoning. Is this about the rezoning?
Okay, I'll be up later then.
Okay. Okay, yes, it is, we're still having trouble when people are speaking in the microphone, so if you want to just take the microphone on the stand and just hold it and talk into it, that's fine too. Okay, so there are no comments.
You'd like to speak?
Okay, please come forward, ma'am. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the records.
Julie Figuera, 288 Boone Country Lane, Defiance, Missouri.
Okay, Julie, go ahead.
I just wanted some clarification. First in your comments, you noted that it was for future village use. Is that, I'm a little confused on what that is. What does that mean? Is that a name that they're going to want to rename the area as well?
No. What I was referring to is in the county's master plan amendment for the agricultural tourism district, it designates this specific area for what it calls a village development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the concept for that is just a little bit different than it would be if it were in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. You
Like
know,
Village of Cottleville?
well, if it were, let's say, at a winery location that wasn't adjacent to any sort of
Okay.
town, that sort of development envisioned by the plan will be a little bit different than this one.
Okay.
For what's so-called village development.
Okay. And my only other comment is, I'm glad you picked up on the 7% of the total of the 79 acres in question. I just know in Mr. Hoffman's video, he mentioned on that same property that he wants to also build horse stables. So I don't know if that will encompass his 6 acres, because it sounds like the hotel that he wishes to build will take up quite a bit of that property. So I just want to make you aware that that was in his video. I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition, but I just want to make the council aware of that was indicated that he was also going to be building horse stables on that property as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? That's all I got.
Any other comments? Please come forward. And remember to fill out the speaker card, please. Okay, thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Glenda Dreyer, 1401 Duke Road, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, Glenda, please go forward.
My main concern is our church property lies right next to that. Not as concerned, I guess, with the hotel per se, possibly the size of it. There is some concern with the amount of trees he's taken out at other locations. And if it stays nestled down in that area away from the church property, that we don't have to worry about a lot of extra trash and noise, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
But I think as part of this, from what I understand, the agricultural tourism specification, from what I understand from Mr. Brazel, that was created, probably kind of specifically for this? Was that something that they had before? Maybe I misunderstood Mr. Brazel, because was that one of the categories that the county had before all this, or was that developed just specifically for this particular rezoning?
No, it was a zoning ordinance amendment in 2013, and this land use classification was added in 2013 to the county zoning as a possibility.
Okay.
It's a conditional use permit, so it's not allowed by right. It would only be allowed, it not only will require rezoning, but also specific consideration of this specific use.
Okay, so on the agricultural tourism, on that rezoning, one of the first things it says is preservation of trees, is that correct?
Yes, preservation of trees is important.
Okay, and how are you going to manage that? Because you haven't been able to manage it up at Montel, because he went ahead and cut down more trees than he was supposed to. And so once a tree is gone, and we've got trees down there that are over hundreds of years old, you can't just put those back.
Right. I can state that in the conditional use permit, in the concept plan, tree preservation is part of that, and it will be required.
And how are you going to mandate that? That's my question again. How will the county mandate that once those trees are gone?
There's a limitation on tree cutting. Any removal of trees or land disturbance requires a land disturbance permit, and so we would monitor it through that and through our inspectors. Both, we could monitor it either our zoning enforcement inspectors or our land disturbance inspectors.
Because I think that will go a long ways to help on noise control if some of those trees are left undisturbed, and certainly will help, like on our church property as well. So that's our big concern. A lot of people in the area just don't want to see happen what they've seen happen at the other two wineries, that all these trees are gone, and then it's too late. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, at this point, we'll ask the applicant to come back up. Okay, there were several items brought up. Would you like to address those?
Yes, I would. Firstly, thank you for your interest and your input. I would like to note that regarding the horse stables, it is true that the Hoffmans are horse-friendly, but they are looking to place the horse stables at a location other than this one. So his comments earlier about horse stables are true, but not necessarily, or not at this site.
So could you give us an idea of that 7%? What is that development? How do you visualize this with this property?
Well, the way in which we visualize it is that we would have a, let's see, do I have to push a button here? There we go. The site would be developed in such a manner to locate the features and facilities that we intend clustered in a central area of the 77 acres, away from Church Street, Jackson Street, Highway 94, and the town of Augusta to the fourth side.
Okay, so that cluster, is that what, 3 to 4 acres right there, or do you have a?
It is a little, it's a little under 4 acres for the actual
Most
buildings.
of what you're developing is specifically right there.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, are there any outbuildings? I think that's really what the person was addressing is they said specifically the horse barn, but they're also, I think, a greater concern of what other types of improvements
Right.
Are going to go on that property.
Well, you can see on the map here that as I mentioned, the lion's share of the development, I'm not certain if this works, but the lion's share of development is centralized, and then at what we'll call the top off of Highway 94, there are a couple of existing buildings that may be able to be repurposed for a new life. One is a very old barn that could be used as a bit of what's called a folly, or something that kind of draws your attention to this farm agricultural tourism location. The other one is a single-family residence, maybe a gift shop or a wine tasting or something to that effect. But it is an existing residence of relatively small size that we're not looking necessarily to expand, but perhaps repurpose.
Okay, so that pretty well takes care of almost the 5 acres right there, between what's existing there and what you're talking about refurbishing.
Yeah, and I'd like to take that back. I misspoke. We have 52,000 square feet under roofing, but that calculates to, and I apologize, that calculates to a little under 1.5 acres of actual development. Now, there are some areas such as parking that Mr. Myers mentioned that also kind of add to that 1.5, so we start trickling upwards. But as understood by all here, the acreage is more than 40. In fact, it's 77. So we do have plenty of space that we don't, that we can dedicate to basically remaining open space and forested. In fact, we plan to kind of utilize, if you will, the forested areas to help this be an enclave. After all, it is something that we want to be desirable and that people will want to come and be at because of where it is and the features that it offers.
Sure. Now, the other question, and I think it's a big concern of many people here, is the trees being preserved. What methods are you going to take to preserve the existing tree cover?
Well, generally speaking, if you look at the map there, you'll see that there's just a myriad of acreage of forested area. The main actual practical realities that will help us preserve those trees is, first and foremost, their benefit to our creating a peaceful area for the guests. The second item that, from a practical standpoint, is that construction and access, as you can see with the road that goes straight up to Highway 94 and whatnot, that is already a clear-ish area, and construction and other elements that will be taking place over the course of 2022 will be making use of that route versus, cutting through for some shortcut off of, some other area.
Right. And the area where the lodge is and improvements, that's mostly field right now?
That is mostly field right now. It's the site itself dips down from 94 and then back up to where our site is. So the nice thing about our site is it's a little bit perched. Water will run away from it. We do need to cut it down a little bit to have a flattish space, of course, to build. So that will lower us a little bit, hunker us down a little bit more. But for the benefit of the guests, we're not in a sunken hole, but we're kind of perched a little bit within our enclave. And for the benefit of everyone else driving by or in the town, you do go down first before you come back up. So it's not quite as high as one might think.
Gotcha. Okay, any other questions for applicant?
Are you planning on removing trees to add agricultural areas like grapes, fruit trees, those types of things, animals, anything like that?
Well, we do have plans. First of all, there are some vineyards on the land as it is, and we do have plans to increase those vineyards, not the least of which to make certain that we meet the requirements of the 5 acres minimum. But since it is a winery town and a winery-based agricultural tourism facility, the notion of more grapes is just, the more the better. So there will be there will be introduced more vineyards than we have now.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll bring it back to the committee here for our discussion. Does anybody have any comments?
Comments are closed.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I know I'm out of order. Can I make a comment?
the public comment is closed at this point, but you'll be able to comment on the future ones that are coming up.
Will that include the location of that road going right on Highway 94, which is a very dangerous turn right there?
That will include that, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that will. Thank you. Okay, any discussion within here? Yes, Ms. Barr?
I just want to clarify and make sure that I'm understanding correctly. This particular vote is only on the zoning, correct? It's not on anything specific that's going to be done here. It's not on what they're building. It's simply, is this piece of land going to be zoned as agricultural tourism. And as I've been looking at the master plan, it appears that this piece of land is pretty much surrounded, or at least on the northern side, with areas that are already in the master plan as agricultural tourism. Am I correct on that? So we're really just expanding that, what's already in the master plan, supposed to be agriculture tourism, to a little bit of a bubble below 94 if we were to vote for this. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Hollander.
You know, just for a little historical background here, when I've been on the county council for 13 years now, and 7 years ago or 8 years ago, when this came up to create an agricultural tourism district, the concept was very attractive because we were having a lot of, I wouldn't say problems, but a lot of discussions about how this land should be used. And we came up with this zoning. I can assure you that at the time that we discussed this, we never imagined a project of this magnitude, okay? But the concept of rezoning this into, you know, what we're talking about was certainly on the minds of the county council 7, 8 years ago when this was done. So, you know, as for the zoning part of it, I think that this property does meet most of those requirements.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hollander. Any other comments? Okay. Can I please have a motion from committee here?
Motion.
Mr. Hollander, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Sally, second. Okay, Ms. Boehmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Carnwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Sally?
Yes.
Ms. Bear?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Motion passes. Okay. Next item is conditional use permit request, same property, 5570 Highway 94 South and Church Street. The application number is CUP 21-14. Property owners Edgewood Highway 94 Number 1 LLC and 0 Church Street LLC. The applicant is Edgewood Highway 94 Number 1 LLC and 0 Church Street LLC. Again, the current zoning is A, agricultural. The requesting is AT, agricultural tourism. The recommended use, again, is rural residential. The conditional use request is for a conference event / lodging center. The parcel size is 79.39 acres. Again, it's on the south side of Highway 94 South between Church Street and Jackson Street, adjacent to the city of Augusta. Staff.
As stated, this conditional use permit application is for the same property as we were just speaking about. But instead of discussing the concept of, is this the right place for this type of zoning, we're talking about a very specific development. Is this the right development for this location? Will it meet the minimum requirements of St. Charles County zoning regulations? And will it have land use impacts for neighbors? And can those land use impacts be mitigated or adjusted so that it can be essentially a good neighbor for its setting and for its location? The primary proposed use of the property for the conditional use permit would include a lodge with 60 guest rooms and an event space a little over 10,000 square feet. The proposed conference event lodging center would incorporate also a host of other services that would be intended for lodging guests, including a restaurant, a swimming pool, sauna, steam room, and yoga room, personal services such as hair care, skin care, and nail salon, outdoor recreation such as walking trails and a pickleball court, and an event coordination, wedding planning. I mention those because those uses are intended to be marketed for the the guests at the lodge. That's not to say that someone walking in off, it wouldn't be a private club so that others could come there. But just as you have any hotel that has a restaurant that's intended for use by the guests at that hotel, this would be in that same sort of classification. Those services are considered to be subsidiary or ancillary for the overall guest lodge and event space. The conditional use permit requirements of St. Charles County, we have generalized ones that we use for all conditional use permit applications, and then we have very specific ones for agricultural tourism land uses. So I'm just going to summarize our generalized ones, and I'll ask these questions for both you, for the benefit of you and the audience. But would establishing, maintaining, or operating the conditional use be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, or the general welfare? Would the conditional use injure the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted? Would the conditional use injure the aesthetic and/or scenic values of the vicinity? Would the conditional use substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood? Would the conditional use impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the zoning district? For these questions, I would just make an overall statement, and that is that a major consideration is that there's existing development on three sides. So unlike a remote location where you might have a winery with all just woodlands around it or agricultural land around it, the context of this is there's residences and other uses. For instance, there's a cemetery, there's a school, etc., that border the subject site. Now, having said that, the agricultural tourism district rules are written such that they can only develop 7%, and in the center of the property, essentially, buildings have to be at least 150 feet away from property boundaries, etc. And we'll get into that in just a moment. You'll notice on this concept plan, which is part of the application and would go to the county council for their consideration, that this concept plan includes those dark green areas which are existing woodlands and which would be preserved. So we heard earlier tonight about the church located just to the northeast of this property on Highway 94. You'll notice that there's a parcel next to it that's light green, and that parcel is not included in this application. But beyond that, you'll see dark green, and those are existing woodlands or tree stands that would be preserved as part of the application. So should this be approved or approved with conditions, one condition typically would be any development has to take place in conformance with the concept plan. So the concept plan that they were proposed is what's under consideration tonight, and is essentially, you might call it a binding agreement, should this be approved. The question was asked, well, how would the county enforce tree removal? And we would do that with our enforcement staff. If we get a report that trees are being removed, for instance, we would determine whether it's a violation of the conditional use permit. We would have a zoning inspector go out and look into it, or having a land disturbance inspector, whatever the case may be. So I mentioned specific conditional use permit requirements, and I'll just characterize these. These are covered more clearly in your, more in detail in your ordinance. But the site must have at least 40 acres, which this does. There's the 7% requirement that we talked about, maximum 7% development. Buildings must be 150 feet from perimeter lot lines. These CUPs in the agricultural tourism district can be no closer to each other than 1/2 mile. In other words, you can't string together 3 or 4 of these such developments in the agricultural tourism district. There's architectural design requirements, including roof pitches, building exterior cladding, use of roof lines and wall planes that provide architectural character and interest. Also, preservation of natural forest lands and tree covers. And there's height restrictions as well. So I can say that the concept that's been proposed to us, we've done a preliminary analysis, and county staff can say that it meets all of the minimum requirements. There's one that we may have to work on a little bit, and that is the maximum height of buildings. But that can be, should this be approved, that's something that will be addressed at a later date. I mean, essentially, it will need to meet the maximum height of buildings requirement that the county has. So with that, the county staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval with specific conditions. And those conditions would include conformance to the site plan, maintenance in a healthy condition of the trees that are located on the concept plan, and also a proposed condition for events so that it would limit the number of hours. So for instance, if they held a specific event that amplified music, for instance, would not go past a certain time in the evening.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff?
So one of the concerns when reading through the letters and everything is that tree preservation, keeping this isolated. And I know the developer had stated that that is their intention.
Right.
Let's say worst case scenario, some people had said that at other places they cut down trees they weren't supposed to. Let's say they do start cutting down a bunch of trees they're not supposed to. What is the penalty for that? Because that was a question of just about everybody here is,
Right.
What is the penalty if they go in and just clear out the trees?
Well, let me begin by saying that another location that the owner controls, they were not violating anything by removing trees in that instance. So there's a winery, for instance, that they own where that winery was approved decades ago, and there were not such restrictions placed on it that there was in terms of tree removal. So in this case, and with any other conditional use permit where we have required tree buffers, the penalties would be that we could place a stop work order in terms of tree removal, and we would send out a notice of violation, and ultimately, if it's not dealt with, then it would go to municipal court, and that's how we handle that.
Okay. Any other questions, staff?
Robert, has there been any evaluation on traffic on 94 with this proposed development, or is it too conceptual at this point for traffic to review this?
There's not been a traffic study to my knowledge. Now, we've been talking with the highway department, and they feel confident that in order to get the permit from Missouri Department of Transportation for their driveway permit, because they'll need a commercial driveway entrance on the Highway 94, that that MoDOT will require a traffic study. For instance, will there be a turn lane necessary to get onto this site, or deceleration lane? Those are questions that MoDOT will address.
So if they have an event where there's 500 additional people coming in, like a concert or a large wedding or any type of conference, MoDOT will hopefully then, can we make as a condition of some type of, a turn lane added there? Because a 2-lane road with that much traffic, depending on the time of day or night, can be, somebody could be sitting there forever waiting for an event to clear, or come in or out, that type of thing.
What was the first part of your question? I'm sorry.
Can we make any kind of or recommendation or condition or anything like that for at least the entrance exit areas of a turn lanes, additional lanes, that type of thing?
You can. Now, I think since they're proposing access from Highway 94, I think MoDOT will control that question.
Okay.
But you could make a recommendation certainly to MoDOT. I don't know that it would bind them, but
Okay.
and in terms of special events, yeah, that's a good thing to think about. In this case, they have a very long driveway going into their parking lot, so I think Luckily, there would be less problems with stacking of cars to get in and off the property, but yes, it's still a concern.
But if you've got 500 cars or 400 cars coming and going on a single event,
Yeah.
not everybody's going to be in one car, obviously, but, that, even if it's 300 to 400 cars, you
Right.
might have 30 that can stack up and down. I don't know how long that drive is, but that could be a problem. I don't know if police would, when you go to concerts and things, police direct traffic and they stop and they start, and I don't know if they'd be willing to do that, but
Right.
that would be a concern, especially in that area, is that traffic flow.
Okay. Now, I can say that there's, I think, 60 rooms proposed for the lodging, so that gives you a sense of what the traffic is for that. For special events, I think the applicants could probably answer for the maximum size.
Okay.
For the wedding venues that we've been reviewing regularly, it's typically been in this area, in the rural residential area. They typically been around for about 200 guests. That's not to say that there couldn't be more here, but that's been our typical. When you get over 200 people in the same room, there's some different requirements for sprinklers and exiting and things like that. So for that reason, some of these facilities have tended to stay under the 200 guests in the room at any one time. But
If it's an outdoor amphitheater, though, they don't have to have those same requirements, correct?
they're not showing an outdoor amphitheater.
Okay,
This is the indoor area of about 10,000 square feet.
okay.
10,600 square feet.
I wasn't sure how large. It said something about a big concrete area for movies and concerts and stuff. I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Or maybe I misread it. Is there an area there for like a big area for outdoor concerts and movies and things like that?
There are considerations for where we can have small events that are outdoors,
But not 500
but
people?
not like a river fest or anything of that nature, no.
500 people or so?
Well, as was hinted at, we do only have 200 parking spaces on the site. So,
Okay.
we're kind of using that as our starting point and working downward. Again, we're trying to attract a more intimate environment or create a more intimate environment that's conducive and kind of derivative of the area instead of bring in, something else.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, at this point, we will ask the applicant to come up again. Okay, this is a new thing, so I have to swear you in again. Okay, please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your names and your property address.
My name is David Lisinski. I'm an architect with Killeen Studio Architects. My address is 52 High Trails Drive, Eureka, Missouri 63025.
Thank you, David.
My name is Mike Killeen, also an architect with Killeen Architects, 3015 Salina Street, St. Louis.
Thank you. So proceed, please.
Yes, so this is the main portion of the proposal that we hinted at earlier. As you can see on the plan here that was submitted officially to St. Charles and cleaned up a little bit from our earlier plans, we still, of course, have the development centralized, nestled within the trees. As noted by Mr. Myers, we're about 900 feet back from Highway 94, so we do have a long queue if need be, but also it's kind of a bucolic drive on the way there that presents the building quite nicely. This one does show a remote parking. That would be, in this case, valet parking, or it would be parking that the guests would park for themselves, and we have a little shuttle so they don't have to, walk up. There is a turnaround up front, of course, so they can drop things off as well. But essentially speaking, it is a facility with three major elements. The hotel lodge, that is the sort of a main central building, and then a hotel or guest rooms off to the side. It's not particularly large. As mentioned, it's 65 rooms or so. And again, that's in the spirit of taking advantage of the intimacy of this site. And then there's a restaurant. There's a restaurant that would be on site as well, as described earlier, and also a spa.
Your microphone went off.
Is it?
Hello.
Okay. So there's a restaurant that would also be part of the facility, and a spa as well that has a pool. You can see here that the pool and the spa are on the south side of the facility. The hotel is on the north side, if you will, and the lodge and restaurant. And then the conference center or wedding venue is up to the northeast.
Is are the pool and the restaurant, are they open to the public, or is this strictly for guests?
Well, as mentioned earlier, I think it was very well described as oriented for the guests. That's why it's there.
Okay.
That's its purpose, but we're not going to be turning away the locals and people who want to come have a bite at the restaurant and whatnot.
I see. Okay, proceed.
As far as the church that's in the upper right, we do plan on screening any parking that we have there by additional plantings, far from taking the plantings out. I mean, there will be some out and some in that will, but generally speaking, we do want to make certain that the church and the cemetery there gets proper treatment by screening from our parking there. There's not a lot of activity at parking, and it's at grade level, versus a building, but it's still something we want to be mindful of. Let's see. As far as the traffic, we do have our civil engineer here, Elliot, who can come up. I guess he'll have to be sworn, but he can speak a bit to the traffic and the traffic study before Michael Killeen has some comments as well.
And I'll swear you in when you're going to speak. Are you going to speak now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Elliot Reed with Cochran Engineering, 530A East Independence Drive, Union.
Okay. Go ahead, Elliot.
There's very good points brought up with the traffic study and the entrance, and quite honestly, we're not to that point yet. There will obviously have to be a traffic study performed, which we are in the middle of now, getting that rolling. MoDOT will require that for the entrance onto Highway 94, and as staff stated, they will also require a commercial entrance permit. Site distance will be an issue. Trips in and out, that'll be part of the traffic study. All of those items will be taken into account to determine the exact location of the entrance. The entrance on the plan there, I would consider conceptual. It may need to shift east or west to take better advantage of site distance and stacking and everything else that will be taken into account when we get to the design phase.
So I do have a couple questions about that. Now, your access to Highway 94, that's a property that's sloping away from 94. So you're going to be having a fairly steep grade there to begin with.
I would not characterize it as steep, no.
Okay, what percentage grade?
When we're at 94, it might be 5%, 6%. I mean, it's not going to be in the 10, 12% range coming directly at 94 there.
And in your, you said you're going to be looking into site distances. Traffic along there will be going 55 miles an hour?
That's correct.
And
then,
so you'll, what kind of site distances are you proposing with traffic coming at that kind of speed?
I did not know the exact numbers at this time. MoDOT has specific site distance requirements for every speed, 35, 45, 55. They have a chart that requires a left view and a right view, which we'll have to meet in order to get to the entrance permit for them.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Thank you, Alec.
Thank you.
Mr. Cleary, if I might just add a few points concerning something Mr. Myers mentioned earlier about this drawing up here being a binding agreement. This was submitted rather early in our process, and the design continues to evolve, but not too far from what you see there. I mean, will we be able to make some adjustments to that plan up there? Or?
The concept plan I was referring to is the second one that was submitted, not this one, but the other one with the darker green and the lighter green.
Yes, sir.
And so we consider that the concept plan. And yes, there's in the ordinance, it does have allowance for adjustments within, it has specifics, within 10% of if the building footprint is within 10%. of the concept plan, things like that. So yes, there's possibilities for adjustment.
Okay, yeah, the general plan where it is evolving to now, I mean, it's heading in a very similar direction to what you see up there on the screen, but it's not exact.
Right.
And obviously, as our civil engineer mentioned, we've got to deal with what's the safest way to come off of Highway 94, which is
Right.
something we're thinking about. And I am actually the author of that plan up there, and one of the folks out here made a comment about that being dangerous. It's something I noted right after I drew it, so that's something we're looking at to maybe go a little bit further west, but I'll leave that up to Elliot and the state on that one. And just a few things. As far as trees go, we've drawn this to, like, maybe we have to knock down a few trees to get through to our site from the front. Not many, though. We are really looking to maintain as many trees as we possibly can. The owners gave us the direction that they want to have this site feel isolated. You know, it's a getaway in the woods, so they're not looking to clear trees here. What else did I want to point out? We are at a current count of 65 rooms. I think 60 had been mentioned, but we're at 65 right now. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay, I did have a question. You mentioned you will need to take some trees. Is part of that plan to plant new trees in the place of the ones that you're taking out?
I think we would more than plant that amount. We call for screening in several locations that would more than take advantage or more than replace those trees. Wish I had a pointer. I'm going to walk over here. Oh, do we? That work? What do you hit? It's really just that spot right there. I need to pop through the trees there. And then, depending on how we end up doing this road, maybe we need to lose a tree or two by the farmhouse. But the building, the way it's designed right now, it's in the middle of a pasture. There's no tree anywhere near it. Parking might require some trees. This, by the way, is future and may never come. We're really right now just looking at parking closer to the building. So.
Okay.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, several of the letters mention some kind of outdoor amphitheater, and I do not see that on the plan.
Yeah.
And that concerns me. I mean, is there plans for an outdoor amphitheater?
Yes, sir. It was very modest. So the thought was, if you're a guest at this place, maybe they'll hire someone with an acoustic guitar to come out and put on a little show for you. It's not Riverport 2, believe me.
Yeah, when you say modest, you're talking about an amphitheater that would, 50 people?
It would. So if they sell out, what would they have? Maybe 120, 130 folks staying at this place. It's really for the guests. We weren't asked to design anything to bring in concerts.
Okay, thank you.
Just an amenity for the guests.
Okay. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, at this point, we will, that's all I think we have for you right now. We'll be calling you up later, I'm sure.
Yes, sir, thank you.
But this would end your comments. Okay, now we're opening this up to the public, and if you have any questions, comments, we'll take note of that. We will bring the applicant back up and address those items. Please remember to fill out a speaker card if you so wish to do so. So if anyone would like to speak on this, please come forward. Now you get your chance.
You guys hold it.
There you go. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Joe Belt. I live at 201 Sanders Road in Augusta.
Okay, please go forward, Joe.
I am generally opposed to a lot of things that Mr. Hoffman has proposed. When we're talking about traffic, we're not just talking about this hotel. There's also the golf course he proposes, and he has proposed putting in a zip line at Montel Winery and the helipad for tours. I don't think any of us live in this area to be in a sideshow. I mean, this is a rural area. Our farmers still go up and down those roads. On the weekends in the fall, 94 is extremely busy. We have a volunteer fire department. They're running up and down the road all the time with accidents. 94 is not equipped for the traffic that he's going to bring to this area. It's dangerous. It's narrow. The venues involve alcohol. There's many, many accidents out here. I've sat at the end of my road in the fall for 5 minutes waiting to get out. That's before all this proposed development. Our farmers, this is an agricultural area, our farmers still have to get their equipment up and down this road. They still work these farms. The men may live on Highway T and they have farms in Defiance that they've got to get their combines, they've got to get their tractors, they've got to get them down there. Augusta is not equipped for this situation. The infrastructure is not there, the road is not there. It's too much. I think the whole development is just beyond the pale. And like I said, I don't think we want to live in a sideshow. I don't want to look at a zip line from my house, which unfortunately I'll have to if he puts one up there. I don't want a helicopter flying over my farm for people doing tours. The Buddhists are represented here. These people have retreats. They do meditation. That is their life. I know they don't want a helicopter flying over their property.
Actually, we will address that in the next hearing.
I know. So I'm strongly opposed.
Sure.
I'm just very, very opposed. I think
Okay.
it's dangerous and ill-conceived.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Okay, any other comments? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address.
Marcy Menke. My address is 4461 Killdeer Drive in Augusta.
Okay, Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, yes, one of my main concerns with this is the traffic on 94 and where this is going to be exiting. It is a blind curve, and we have lived here for 12 years, my husband and I, and we have seen many accidents on 94, including helicopters taking people out on Klondike Hill. And we have a lot of people that are drunk on the weekends and some people that aren't. And so my concern with this is how much traffic is this going to be bringing in, and what is it going to do to the area? More deaths, more injuries. We actually, my husband and I, had to take someone to the hospital whose best friend was in a motorcycle accident on 94 near Klondike Hill, and she ended up dying. She was the mother of 3 children, and it was horrible. So I know that we can't prevent all accidents, but what can we do to mitigate the danger of 94? Also, I have a question about where the water supply for this project is coming from.
Okay, we'll ask him.
Okay. Also, what about the water drainage in this area? There's a creek there, and I know it goes through town. What impact does that have on the town and the people that live on the other side of this creek that goes into Augusta?
Okay, we'll ask the engineers that one come up.
Okay. Okay. So that's my main concern is the traffic and the rural feel of the area. I've known Augusta since 1987. I have driven through there for work. Always wanted to live here. We moved in 2009, and we love the rural atmosphere. We love the look. We love that. And according to your use plan, you are trying to limit the development while protecting the agricultural feel, look, and the beauty of the area. And I think that's very important. And my concern is, what will this do to that? Is this something that's really going to have a negative impact on that?
Okay, thank you for your comments, Marcy. Any other comments? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please state your name and address.
Bruce Seam, 6730 South Highway 94, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, Bruce, go ahead, please.
Yeah, she kind of touched on that. I'm 63. I grew up in Augusta. The proposed entrance on the highway is dangerous, and if you all do issue them this, or grant them this rezoning and stuff, and they can't get it in their entrance in off of Highway 94, where are they gonna go?
Right.
And traffic is a big issue. We farm, and I know what it is.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Bruce. Any other comments? Please come forward.
Yeah, my main question is, I'm not necessarily so...
Oh, I need to swear you in.
I'm sorry?
I need to swear you in.
Good, yeah.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and...
Glenda Dreyer,
And your address?
1401 Duke Road, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, Glenda, go ahead.
Okay. Just my main question regarding this hotel development. I'm not 100% opposed to the development there. Our big concern in our area is if they have this, what else can they add to it without having to go back to the county? Can they suddenly, okay, well, this is what we propose now, but now we're going to add this, and we're going to add this. Does it have to stay within that 7%, no matter what they do, or do they have to come back to the county if it expands past that for further approvals? Or can it become the sky's the limit by adding amphitheaters and hot air balloon rides and this, that, and the other thing, and suddenly, half the ground is taken up with various activities?
We'll ask the staff and the engineer here. Thank you. Any other comments? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the records.
Phil Estes, 173 Jackson Street, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, Phil, go ahead.
A lot of questions have been covered. My question is regarding the amplified music. I didn't hear a timeline specified, but I think I did read 10 p.m. If, as I think it was the architect stated, if it's an acoustic guitar till 10 p.m., that's one thing. If it's a rock band till 10 p.m., that's something else. And I don't know if there's going to be any controls around that, or, I would just recommend, because I don't think over time, we can necessarily control what type of music is played and how loud it is. So I would like to see the length of time for an amplified outdoor music to be shorter than 10 p.m. Currently, most of the wineries, I think it's still the case with the new owners, shut down around 5 o'clock. I have lately, though, since it's been bought out, heard some of that beyond 5 o'clock. So I just want to know what limitations are going to be there so that we can peacefully enjoy our homes that surround that area.
Don't some of the wedding venues, though, like Noble Ice and some of the other ones, allow music much later than that? I'm pretty sure they do.
Noble Ice is a mile from town, so we don't...
No, I'm just saying that for the area. Again, we're talking, right now, I'm talking about the area itself. But you're saying this specific town, this right here.
Yeah, I mean, this one is it's surrounded by residential homes.
Yeah, I know, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think 10 p.m. is too late. The other question is, what is the elevation of the highest point of this hotel compared to the elevation of Jackson Street and Church Street?
Okay.
I just want to know if it's going to be visible by homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? By the way, please, anyone who has spoken, please fill out a card after you finish. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury? And please state your name and address.
Christina Kolchiski, 1017 North Drive, Warson Woods, Missouri. But I lived in Augusta from 1987 until I went to high school, and I'm really here on behalf of my parents,
Okay, go ahead.
Jane and Gerald Stachinsky, who live at 234 Schindler in Augusta.
Okay.
So I guess at a high level, my feeling is that for the scope of this development, this is really being rushed. And I think you can hear from a lot of the comments that there are a lot of concerns. And it seems like it is premature for the council to even vote at this point in time, and that there needs to be much more discussion on this before a vote is had, so that all parties can have their voices heard. That's my comment at a high level. Now, from a safety, which is obviously the most important, a lot of people have talked about the entrance onto Highway 94. There is a road there, Schindler, which is the road that my mom has a house on. And so that road, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but when you come out on that road onto Highway 94, it goes down in both directions. So it's blind in both directions. And on top of that, there's no room for any sort of curb. To the left or to the north, you have a hill, and then it drops off steeply to the south. And so I very, very, very much hope that MoDOT takes that into their consideration. It's not just the safety of the people entering and exiting the development itself, but it's the people who have been there their whole lives, or at least 35 years, which is somewhat short timers for Augusta. So that is really a concern, and I really would invite, I guess it's probably not going to happen, but somebody on the city council, or perhaps Mr. Myers, to go out there and actually look at the fall of the land in terms of how that goes. Because if you have people coming from St. Louis, which is where they're all going to come, and they're stopped on that road trying to turn left, going into that development, they're going to back up, and somebody is going to come up over that hill and run right into the back of them, and there's going to be a tragedy. There's definitely going to be a tragedy, and it's either going to be a local or it's going to be somebody visiting that hotel. And so, again, for that reason alone, I think this is way premature. I do not think that we want to delegate this to state of Missouri. I think this issue should be at least somewhat kept local for now so that we can have control over it. That's number one. With regards to the trees, you see all the time tree fences for new developments. They've talked about spending $100 million. Why not require for them to go out, walk the property with the inspectors, put a tree fence up to clearly delineate which trees are protected, so that there is complete transparency there for everybody, so that he cannot just go in and say, oh, no, those trees were okay to be cut down. And then also vote now to put a fine in place on each tree. I don't know, $10,000 a tree. Do that now so that that cannot happen. And then also think about the trees from Highway 94, right? Because they want to create this bucolic place in the middle of the woods. But what about the people that live there and drive on Highway 94 and move there because it was so beautiful and serene? So the council needs to give consideration to how many trees are going to be cut down to create this entrance. With regards to the outdoor amphitheater, anybody who's been to the Augusta area knows that you don't need an outdoor amphitheater to have a big concert. As a matter of fact, people love to sit on the lawn. So this needs to be given consideration, and there needs to be limits put in place as to the number of people that can be there for an event. Other things, noise. We talked about the bands. This gentleman was correct. This is in the center of the town. The music rises. You can hear on Schindler Road down at the end the music from Mount Pleasant, which is 2 or 3 miles away. By the way, you asked about weddings. I got married at Mount Pleasant. The music was inside. And by the way, it had to be done at 9 o'clock, not 10 o'clock. So there's all sorts of little details that really need to be taken into account here. Fireworks. In St. Louis, people love to go to the high-dollar venues, and I'm amazed at the number of people who seem to have $10,000 or $20,000 to blow off in fireworks at the end of a wedding. I'm sure it's beautiful, but it's very annoying when you're trying to put a child to sleep or you're trying to go to sleep yourself. So has that been considered? With regards to the road, the civil engineer here said that 6% is not steep. I just Googled it on Wikipedia, and 6% is actually the maximum allowable grade on a federal highway system, a federal highway. So, I mean, just consider that when you're thinking about this. And then finally, I guess we will get to the helipad, but I don't want to get back up here again. That location is abhorrent. Any thing like that right by the highway, again, is going to distract drivers. As they're driving by, they're going to be looking at the helicopter landing. They're going to be looking at the balloon going up and down. They're going to either drive off, or they're going to drive into somebody, or they're going to rear end somebody. But that helipad right next to a cemetery is just, it's abhorrent. the fact that anybody would even propose that is absolutely crazy. So again, I guess I'll just summarize here to say that I think there's way, way, way too many details for consideration to think about even voting on this at this point in time. So those are my comments.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, was there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Kevin Struckoff. I live on 867 Osage Ridge Road in Augusta, Missouri.
Okay. And please proceed with your comments.
And trying not to get too repetitive for all of you, but just bouncing off what other locals have said. My father's been a volunteer fire department member in the Augusta area for 40 years, and there's many people who have been volunteer members for a long period of time. And going back 20 years ago, when a lot of the whiners really started hopping, you had a weekend, it happened every weekend, where there was wrecks. It's because people don't know the highway. So I guess what my point is to try to keep in mind the locals who are fire department, what they are putting up with, because they are volunteers. Amen. And to go with what other people have said, if you actually visit this location, personally, he can do what he wants with this property, but when it comes to public safety, if you look at where this entrance could possibly be, it is a blind turn, which there are things that can be done, but if you are familiar with the Augusta area, when it comes to October, September, that time frame, if you've got any kind of backup on 94, especially in that area, that is a very, very popular area for motorcycles, and when they come through, they are humming. And so maybe it's not your fault, maybe it's not the developer's fault, but just something to keep in mind is that this is quite possibly the most dangerous area in the Augusta where you could have any kind of backup. I can't see where you could have a private drive there without a lot of landscaping being done, because just in general, that's a bad spot. So please just keep locals in mind, especially the volunteers who are, if you're going to have accidents, they're the ones who are having to report for this. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and number, and remember, everybody fill out a card.
Yes, I will. Angela Stevens. I live on 400 Schindler Road, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, Angela, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate one more time, because it's that important. I live right there on Schindler, and when I come down to the stop sign, you have to look 4 directions really quick. I mean, you're looking left, you're looking right, because at any second some car comes around the corner. It can be nuts. Like, I pull out, try to go fast enough, and then someone's right on my butt. I also ride motorcycle, and I know what it's like to sit there and wait for cars, wondering if I'm going to get hit from someone coming around the corner. So everything that was said is true. I just have to come up and just to make it that important. That's a really dangerous turn. There are hills, there are trees. I live it, I drive it every day. Just want to put my 2 cents in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, any other comments? Oh, okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
And your name, sir? And
Jason Orff, 3501 Bluffview Drive, St. Charles,
Okay.
62303.
Okay, Jason.
I'm actually not even here for this, but I grew up in St. Paul, which is north of O'Fallon. You guys probably never been there or heard of it. Yeah, a great farm ground all the time.
Okay. By the way, we're good. I know that St. Paul's a beautiful area. I think we can all agree.
It was beautiful. That was supposed to be 5-acre lots.
Right.
That turned into TRUs, all residential. Now we have, on 70, 80 acres, we have about 500 houses. There's people in St. Paul that would rather have a winery sitting there instead of having all these homes getting built up. They're pushing more residential homes out now than there ever was. So if you look at both sides, all the ground's being built up in St. Charles County. It's all getting pushed towards you guys, regardless or not. So, I mean, you got to kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to want. If you're going to want a hotel that's be sitting and preserving 80 acres or 500 homes there. Because they're going to run out of ground. They're going to build. So
Okay.
that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
It does.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay, please asking the applicants, please come back up. Okay, we have a lot of issues that have been brought up. I think the one that was said probably most often, and I think that one probably needs to be addressed first, is the entrance off 94 and what is going to be done from a design perspective, what is going to be done to make it safe for the people driving the road there.
The only thing that can be done the design perspective is designing to MoDOT regulations, period, at the end of the day. The reason that they have sight distance requirements for a certain speed limit is for safety. MoDOT is not going to allow an entrance in a certain location unless we meet all of those guidelines. Grades, distance, entrance width, everything, turning lanes if it's required by the traffic study, all of those items. They will be required by MoDOT. They're required by MoDOT on every development. They'll be required on this one as well. So that, I mean, basically that's the only thing I can say with respect to how the entrance will be permitted. Yes, ma'am.
So, just clarify for me, if MoDOT requires Highway 94 to be expanded so that you now have 3 lanes with a turning lane in the middle, would the property owner be required to pay for that and do that, or is that something that MoDOT would do?
They would require that as part of the development.
Okay.
They
So
would.
potentially, if it were required, you all would potentially be expanding the road and making that stretch of road actually safer because it had a turning lane.
This is correct. As part of the traffic study, they look at the development, rooms in the hotel, seats in the restaurant, whatever other amenities there are in the property, and how many trips that will generate in a certain hour.
Okay.
And then that goes into the study, and they analyze, well, in a certain hour, you're going to have whatever, 5, 6, 7, 10 lefts. Is that allowable on 94 with a given sight distance or not? And if it is not, then you're going to need to add a left turn lane.
I mean, I think everyone in this room can probably agree that Highway 94 is pretty dangerous and needs to be expanded. I think it would be great if we could have all of Highway 94 be a 4-lane road and with a turn lane, you know? Anyway, it's just my opinion. It's fine. I don't work for MoDOT. No. I'm just saying, okay, I'm just saying that I think that we all agree that Highway 94 is dangerous, okay? And so what I'm saying is any chance that we could get to make it safer for the people that are using it is a positive. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not an expert on traffic. I'm not an expert on how we should do it, but that's MoDOT's job. So.
Correct.
But I
And-
think,
and-
making it safer for the people driving it is a great idea.
In every development that enters a state-controlled highway, they're going to require the same study and the same requirements for sight distance and speed. Every one.
So I have a question. You have access, it looks like, off of Church Road and possibly off of, to Jackson. Since those are already existing roads and wouldn't require a new road, why not tap into those?
The preference.
Okay.
I guess, let me back up. The trail that you see there is a walking trail that's connecting to Church right now, the dark brown line.
I know that. I'm just saying, why not put a driveway there with the issues?
It's the preference for the development to have a main access off Highway 94. That's the preference. And we're going to work towards obtaining sight distance. If we have to add lanes for the traffic study, we'll add the lanes for the traffic study.
Okay.
Is it an option to come off Church Street? There's frontage on Church Street. Yes, there is. There is frontage there. But it's the preference for the development to come straight off 94 for the main entrance.
Okay. Let's see. No particular, I guess one of the things, again, and this is maybe for the architect, what height is the elevation of the rooftops, and what are the distances from the, let's say, from Jackson and from Church? You know, how high are those rooftops going to be? It looks like at least it's going to be at least a couple stories high in place. What is the elevation of those rooftops, the peak of the rooftops?
Well, as you are correct that the development itself, again, keeping with being sort of fitting in, is only 2 to 3 stories tall at its highest floor level. The third story is mainly for the central area, and you know, as we branch off to the guest rooms, that's only a 2-story area. We're looking at having decent ceiling heights inside, so we will be looking at maybe 10 to 12 feet on the first floor, another 10 or 11 feet, et cetera. We'll be working with the building height limitations that Mr. Meyer spoke about earlier, to make certain that it fits into the rules and regulations that they have.
So it could be 40 feet high, the peak, or so.
It's possible, I think, within the rules that the very tip top of a gabled roof could be perhaps at 40 feet if they measure 35 feet at the center line, or, there's a certain protocol they use. So, you might see some pitched roofs. I know I was out at the site a couple of weeks ago, and I could, see the church steeple, which is quite high, over the trees and whatnot. And, there are some points that may see part of our steeple portion through the trees, true.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, there was also discussion about the music, and I think that's something that we probably will discuss here. And then there was questions about where the water's going to come in from, and what are you going to do in terms of the disbursement or retention of water. Obviously, if you build up the back end a little bit, water's going to come off that. Where's that water going to go? How are you going to retain it?
St. Charles County has strict stormwater detention requirements or water quality requirements as well. Those will all be met as part of the development. The details of how and where the water is going to be stored haven't been worked out at this point, but as the construction drawings are developed, they'll obviously have to meet all the county's code with respect to those.
So at what point do you anticipate that the the drawings will be developed enough so that we'd know those kind of names?
The topographic survey was completed this week, so next week we're going to start design drawings.
Are you going to be self-contained water and septic?
We are not. The plan for water service, first of all, water service and sewer service is handled by Public Water Number 2 in the area. There is a water line on Highway 94, there's a water line on Church Street, and I believe there's also a water line on Jackson. So water will come from either 94 or probably 94 Church Street.
And is that where you have to bring the sewer line in from also, or is it going to be a septic system or a lagoon system? Or
It is not planned to have a septic or a lagoon. It's planned to tie into the City of Augusta's treatment plant system. We had a conversation with Public Water Number 2.
Go ahead. Please, let the gentleman speak. Go ahead.
We had a conversation with Public Water Number 2 actually on Monday, so we're beginning conversations with them to make sure there's enough capacity for the plant. And if there's not enough capacity for the plant, then we'll make the capacity.
Okay. Let's see. What other things were discussed here? Anybody else remember some of the other items here? I think those were primarily the issues. Anybody have any other questions?
I guess question for staff is just the nuisance with the noise and things of that. As far as the concerns that came up on that, do you guys have decimal readings at the property lines to kind of control noise that you would handle as a code enforcement issue, the county?
We do have standards for lights and experience with light pollution at property lines. County staff, in terms of community development department, has not been handling noise complaints. Those complaints are handled by the county's police department.
Okay, but there are requirements on that would be subject to any development that they must meet at the property line where they can't go over a certain noise level. It sounds like, and that's enforceable.
So we can put conditions, can't we? We can say that no music past 8 o'clock Monday through Thursday, no fireworks during the week, or, you know, except for holidays. I mean, we can set some of those conditions, can't we, for approval?
Yes, yeah.
Sure.
Certainly. Right. You can set conditions to deal with noise, for instance. Sometimes there's different hours for outdoor amplified sound versus indoor amplified sound. Even indoor amplified sound, typically we've had cutoffs, times for event spaces because, one, sometimes the doors or windows are open, which lets out more noise, or sometimes you can just hear it through the walls potentially. So with special event spaces in the unincorporated county, we have been typically using cutoff times.
Yeah. Okay. Elliot, I did have another question. You said you're going to be submitting this to MoDOT for. At what point do you think we'd get any kind of response back from MoDOT in terms of what their recommendations would be?
We have to finish the traffic study to start with. Quite honestly, MoDOT is not always the fastest on review time, so from submittal to them, guessing, I mean, you might hear back from them in 30 to 60 days.
Okay. And when do you anticipate your traffic study being done?
Within 30 days.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess, question for staff, if the traffic study comes back and there's significant changes, just this layout because of access, and it probably will with the access for sure, not the layout of the buildings, does it have to come back before this commission for review?
There's, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
In our code, it specifies what constitutes a minor amendment versus a major amendment to a concept plan. I believe that if the entrance were shifted, that it would constitute a minor amendment. So if it were a major amendment, like if they decided that they would suddenly take access instead off of, you know, a different street, like internal to Augusta, that would be a major change and would need to come back. But I think if they move the location in conformance with MoDOT's requirements for safety, that would be a minor amendment, would not come back.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So okay, gentlemen, I think that's it for right now. It's also been suggested that with the data still out there in terms of the disbursement of the water, traffic studies and things like that, that perhaps to maybe do a continuance on this might be a good idea. I guess if we do that, I guess we'd have to have some kind of motion to do a continuance, but we can certainly discuss it first of all here too.
Yeah, I'd like to address a couple of things first,
Sure.
when we talk about that. First of all, there was some mention about zip lines and golf courses and all those other kind of things. Please understand, we're only here for this particular piece of property, and, what they decide to do other places, obviously, is going to have to go through a similar process or through the county council or whatever. The second thing, and a lot of concern, and I think everybody should be concerned about the traffic, one thing you have to understand, in my experience with MoDOT, is that when they come out and they're going to talk to these folks, and they're going to make, and they won't give you recommendations, they'll make, specific, this is what needs to be done. And one of the things that I found in the past is they may require a lot. And the reason they do that is because they don't have to pay for it. These developers are going to have to pay for this if they're going to put a third lane in, a turning lane, whatever, all right? In my experience, that's part of the development, is MoDOT ordering those things. I know you're very concerned about the trees, and I understand why you are because of the ones that were cut down at the specific winery that you mentioned. But as Mr. Myers mentioned, this is a different time. We have a much, much stricter code on tree preservation than we did even 5 years ago. And I truly believe that they will be held accountable when it comes to, what they've put here. Okay? And then last of all, to answer your question, anything that they would decide that they're going to change, some kind of major thing, that would have to get approval, from planning and zoning, community development. This is not a a blank board that we are giving them. What they have up there, what you see right there, you know, and again, they mentioned that it might not be 100% specific, but, you know, that's basically what the county will hold them to doing, is what you see there, if this is approved. Okay. So those are just some points I'd make.
So when you talk about MoDOT coming in and possibly having an add a third lane or a turning lane, which I don't think would be possible without impacting the local citizens, one for Dusty and I, his property would then invoke, you guys would probably have to invoke eminent domain to add that extra lane.
We're not getting this on.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the public, I shouldn't have taken that. The public comment section is complete at this point. I apologize.
Things have changed with this whole MoDOT study. Things have changed. You should allow us to have a voice because that's a huge change. Nobody too wants to write down there.
Please, let us discuss it here, and then we will go forward. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Hollander. Any other comments?
I don't feel comfortable on voting on this right now without seeing the traffic study and the.
Okay. So, I guess my question is, do we have any other members?
I'm going to
of-
make a motion to continue this till we get the traffic studies back.
Okay, a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion. Okay, so let's then go ahead and vote on whether we will continue this. Okay, till next meeting. Mr. Carnwell?
No.
Mr. Hollander?
No.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Sally?
No.
Ms. Barr?
No.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So we've got 3,
Concurring votes.
what do we need in terms of?
If you could give me 1 second, I'll check that section. I think it's 3 concurring votes.
Okay.
To continue something, but.
Okay,
One
hold on.
time only.
Okay, hold on.
Let's see here. We're talking about the conditional use permit, though, so. Zoning.
Okay.
I apologize. I apologize. I know it's 3 concurring votes for rezoning, but I'm not sure about conditional use permits, so I'm still looking for that.
Okay. We can wait.
Well, it's only a certain number. It's not, doesn't include majority. It sounds like. So I think he's just checking to see if it's a majority. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
That was a great point.
Yeah.
I don't want it. I'm not against it. Just
Right.
trying to be consistent
Right.
because we've
But the road is my concern, and it says, would establishing, maintaining, or operating a conditional use be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, or the general welfare?
This one.
That, it says right there, that's one of the questions that's below.
Right, right. So, all right, do you have some?
We think so.
So what we are checking on right now is we have voted, three of us have voted to continue it, and what they're simply doing right now is just checking the ordinances to determine if it needs to be in majority or if it's three. So if you all can have patience here for a minute, we will determine that and then go forward from that point.
I'm seeing it's silent as to the CUP, so I would think that any other motion would be taken as a simple majority in that case.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
Sorry. It's silent as to specifically with the CUPs, which means that it would go to the vote, the simple majority vote as regular motions then in that case.
Okay,
It's
so
silent to that.
since it was voted 4 to continue and 3 not, we will continue. Is that what you're saying? Oh, the opposite of what, that?
No, apologies, the vote went.
Your voice isn't carrying.
Four no, 3-8, 4-0.
The majority would be not to continue then, yeah.
So the motion failed. Okay, so the motion did fail, so we will continue the discussion then. Okay, so we have mentioned there's many items, I guess.
So, one of the things, that struck me is talking about the volunteer fire department and the dangers to the road. They have limited resources. You have people, equipment, those types of things. Is there something we can put in place to help with that as a consideration if there's, an increased issue? I am not opposed, so that I'm not opposed to this development. I am concerned because when I look at this and we look at the CUP analysis, number one is the question is, would establishing, maintaining, or operating conditional use but detrimental or to endanger public health, safety, or general welfare? Now, do I think this building is a danger? No. But I do hear the voice of the people that there is a concern when you live in the area and you have limited resources to take for that. So that your voice is heard, and I do hear that as a concern. And I hope the developer takes that into concern, especially when it comes to the volunteer fire department and what they do to help maintain the safety of that area.
Terry, go ahead.
See, one of the things I think that we have to understand is that once MoDOT studies this and once the engineers come up with what they come up with, it's not going to be a situation where MoDOT is going to say, because of these concerns, you're not going to be able to have the project. That's just not going to happen. Okay? What's going to happen is they're going to set conditions to make it as safe as they believe it possibly can be. Okay? Which I see this as something that this board does not control.
Right.
Which is MoDOT. Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
You're not going to get a curb cut through MoDOT unless you meet MoDOT's requirements, which what we're talking about is that's the traffic study, correct? As far as what you've reached out to MoDOT. Can you speak up to that?
Okay, since this specific question has been brought up, you can come back up.
It is, I hear everyone's concerns, I do. Are we preliminary? Yes, we are. It is not uncommon to be at this stage of development to request a conditional use permit. Normally, you do not proceed on with design plans and studies and everything else when you could get a no vote and the project's dead. The issue about MoDOT, for example, we're going to request that we have an entrance on Highway 94 per this plan. There's really only two outcomes of our submittal to MoDOT. They either say, yes, it's approved, and you're going to have to do A, B, C, and D, at which point we will be in conformance with this plan, or they're going to say, no, you cannot have an entrance. If they say, no, you cannot have an entrance, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Myers, we change our plan, and I come off Church or Jackson or wherever, and we're back in front of you with a new plan to have to discuss. So what you are approving is, we approve your plan with your entrance onto 94, which is now our responsibility to get permitted with MoDOT, a traffic study, turn lanes, whatever else we have to do that. If that's not the case, then we're going to come back here and start this process over again.
Gotcha. So have you had projects before where you've tied into a MoDOT highway yourself, where you've tied in?
Almost every one.
Okay. So what do you anticipate that they will require a third lane there with the sight distances, the speed, things like that?
I'm going to preface my answer by I'm not a traffic engineer. And the study is going to have to determine that.
Gotcha.
Left turn lanes are really based on turning movements and how many you have. It's not really sight distance based. The sight distance is whether you can have the entrance or not. How many cars are coming in and out determine how wide everything has to be.
Okay, but you would have a situation where people would be turning in and out, so.
Correct, and if it goes over a certain threshold each hour, then you have a left turn lane. And I'm not certain what that number is, but that's all in the study, and MoDOT will require that.
Can I clarify that if you did have to put in a left turn lane, that you would use part of your property rather than ask for someone else's property to be taken by eminent domain?
That's a very good question. Yes, if we have to widen the road, normally a lane widening is 12 feet. I do not know off the top of my head whether there's enough existing right-of-way in Highway 94 for that. It's common in a private development that if you do have to widen, you will widen to the project side because that's your property. You can dedicate right-of-way to 94, and away you go, yes. If for whatever reason we needed to widen, it would be on us to obtain that privately.
Okay.
So you're not planning on taking anyone's land by eminent domain?
No, we're not.
Now, this is maybe a question for staff. When MoDOT comes back with the traffic analysis, do we get the results of that? Or how do we know kind of what the next step is going to be?
We can certainly send you the results. That's no problem. And we can do it that way. I guess your options would be you could condition approval upon a traffic study approved by MoDOT. That would be one option. You could table consideration until the traffic study is done. That would be another option. Those would be two options that I would see. But certainly you can get a copy of the traffic study. Now, I wanted to ask if I could, please, just for clarification, there's something called a traffic analysis versus a traffic study. And I don't know much about it, but the way I understand it is the traffic study is more involved and it's more rigorous.
I mean, this will be a full traffic study as required by MoDOT.
Right.
And to not get into the details of how it all happens, the very first thing you do is you meet with MoDOT and you discuss this, and then they will tell you exactly what they want in the report. So there's not a lot of back and forth. So step one is meeting with them. They're already aware of the project. They'll tell us what intersections need to be studied, how we're going to study, what time of the day. And then that happens. They do the report, submit it to MoDOT. MoDOT has an internal review whether it does or doesn't meet their guidelines, and away you go. We would be more than happy to share, and it's very common to share a traffic study that staff would want to see to make sure that whatever lanes we're adding on 94 are required by MoDOT, sure. I mean, that's not something that's, hidden for whatever reason.
Okay, again, this is a question for staff. So this is a preliminary plan. Will the final plan then come before us once these have all been completed?
No, and the reason is this is a concept plan for the conditional use permit. Their next step would be, should they get approval, within 2 years after that approval, they would have to submit a site plan to county staff for approval in conformance with the approved concept plan. The site plan is a lot more rigorous than this concept plan. It's very specific. It has elevations. It shows, calculations on water flows and et cetera.
So at the site plan development, that would come back before us, and we would have, or no, that it would not? Okay.
Would not, yeah,
That would
site
be
plan would
separately
not.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for engineer?
No, not for him. I do want to bring up the music and the time.
Yes.
I think that this would be a good time for us to, quickly discuss the issue and then possibly add to the conditional use permit a time that we would all agree on.
I agree.
And
Go ahead.
fireworks as well.
Fireworks, yeah. I don't know where that falls in, but I guess it does. Okay.
Yeah, that's why, sorry. That's why I just brought up, is there just regular nuisance code that the county has, that the restrictions already in place where they can't have it past a certain time on that? But if that's not the case, then we need to be regulating.
The case is when it comes to the wineries and the wedding venues, that every single one that comes before the council seems to have a different one, and we have to discuss it,
Gotcha.
argue over it, and come up with a time that we think makes people happy.
Okay.
So the way I see it, we've got three things we're discussing as possible conditional uses to add in. A traffic study with MoDOT, specifics on what we would recommend on music, and specifics on the fireworks. Is that correct? Are there any other issues?
Well, for the MoDOT, I would say MoDOT approval of the curb cut. I know that's their jurisdiction, but it's more than just a traffic study. It's making sure that they approve and whatever they place as far as restrictions, the applicant has to meet.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. Okay, what about music?
Now, there's already,
We did not, I know that the county has a strict development. I'm going to let Robert address the water.
Well, in terms of the source of water, they're proposing to tie into Public Water Supply District Number 2.
I think he means runoff,
He's
right?
talking about runoff, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Runoff.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of below ground. Okay, runoff, there's a couple of aspects. One is just the volume of water and the rate, and the other is the water quality. So recently, we adopted water quality standards in addition to preventing flooding of neighboring properties. We also require that stormwater be filtered so that it helps with the water quality. So those standards fall under a permit issued by the state of Missouri, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and this project will meet the county's stormwater standards, or it won't happen. I mean, that's all there is to it.
And we have some of the strictest around, do we not?
We do have strict standards, and they were enhanced within the last year.
Yeah.
So would that be something that we additionally have to state, or would that be something that you automatically do?
That's something that we'll automatically do in terms of it'll have to meet our stormwater standards. The other aspect of this is if they were intensively developing the entire site or something close to that, there would be more of a concern about how tight this would be. But because of the fact that they're developing the center of the tract and there's so much land that's going to be left open space and that will absorb stormwater, and the fact that the parking lot itself, in order to get all their credits, they'll probably have to do permeable pavement. I'm not concerned that they will be unable to meet the stormwater requirements of the county, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, okay. Could you hear that, sir?
Yeah. Okay, sure.
No, that's okay. I want to make sure we did address that. Okay.
As for music, I would like to propose that during the week that there would be no outdoor amplified music past 7 o'clock, and on the weekend, nothing past 8 o'clock.
And during the week, you're talking about Sunday through Thursday, or are we talking Monday through Thursday?
Monday through Thursday.
Okay. Monday through Thursday.
Can I ask a question on that?
No.
No later than 7, correct? You said no later than 7?
No later than 7 on weekdays
On
and 8
weekdays.
o'clock on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
No later than.
And again, this would be outdoor amplified music.
And can we
Okay.
put a condition on there on amplified music on Sundays during church services?
I think that would be wise too, that they can't, on Sundays, they can't start before a certain hour, whatever we would decide.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, are we able to amend the condition that's already listed, or?
What do you have in mind, Jamal?
No, I was just saying, so it says right now, under condition number 3, for all events, means, or functions to be held on the premises, all amplified sound should end by 10 p.m.
Right, we are.
So are we able to amend
Yeah,
that condition?
that's what we're
itself?
modifying.
Okay, got it.
So Sundays, 1 o'clock start at earliest.
Right.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings at 8, correct? And on the weekdays at 7? And then what about fireworks?
My own personal opinion should be the 4th of July, and that's it, but it's my opinion. It is, well, there is no city limits of Augusta. I don't think it's in the county. But we can set whatever we want.
So, you know, obviously 4th of July, I think, is a one-off. But, you know, in the summertime, obviously, it doesn't get darker till 9:30, and then the other times of the year, it's dark at 6 o'clock. So, you know, can we say a time frame by season? Is that acceptable? I'm asking staff, is that possible for firework limitations? Because like I said, at 9 o'clock in December, it's, you know, or in June, July, and August, it's just getting dark. But if we set a limit at 8 o'clock, are we already limiting noise at 8 till 8 o'clock?
You can set or recommend fireworks limits and by hours or times of year or days. For example, there is one winery that does not have fireworks limits, and they probably get about 20 fireworks permits a year from the county for special events. And they're in a more rural setting. So it's
not uncommon then?
It's hard to know whether this particular facility would use fireworks or not. But for some places, for special events, they do use fireworks, yeah.
Can I amend my thoughts are that we just put a condition in that no fireworks are allowed. I mean,
Except for the 4th of July?
That's not gonna hinder this multi-million-dollar development whether they can shoot fireworks or not, I guarantee you that, so.
And I think, too, the concept is that we're trying to create a district that's going to allow the present uses to be in place. Not everybody, you know, that seems, I would tend to agree with you, Terry, that no fireworks. I think that would be the...
Can we give them an exception on 4th of July, though?
Sure.
Okay.
If so.
So here, I believe, are what we've discussed then, that the approval would be on the conditions that the county has 1 through 5, with the exception of, on condition 3, we would say for all events, meetings, or functions to be held on the premises, all amplified sound should end by 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, and no later than 8 o'clock on Friday through Sunday, and music, amplified sound, no earlier than 1 p.m. on Sunday, okay? I didn't write that down, but that's the idea.
Now, we do need to mention the word outdoor.
That
Okay.
was my question.
Okay, yeah, outdoor amplified, excuse me, yeah, outdoor.
And you mentioned, if this is intended for outdoor, do you intend to also have any standards for indoor amplified sound, or would this just replace that concern? Do you want to also
I don't know, we
have-
haven't really discussed it. I mean, I think that it might not be a bad idea for the whole thing. I mean, if you have people staying there as guests, I would think that would be a courtesy to the people who are the guests there, that you don't want music going all night long.
At the same time, I mean, amplified sound is pretty broad. I mean, we have amplified sound going on right now in our microphones, and it's 9:30. So if they had any sort of an event, you know, I would hate to limit somebody's wedding and tell them they had to stop by, 7 p.m. on a Thursday because the preacher was using a microphone.
Okay, so what, you're talking about if it's indoor, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay,
yeah.
well, I mean, what would you propose then? Or what are you proposing?
I didn't have a specific proposal.
So we could extend it an hour each, or 2 hours? Still 7 o'clock during the week, and between 9 and 10 on Friday, Saturday?
What some of the wedding events planners have been telling us is that, like ending the music, it's not the weddings themselves that are allowed, obviously, it's the receptions. You know.
Right.
And the receptions, it's not unusual to say the music must stop at either 10 or 11, and that's pretty
And that's
typical.
indoor.
Yeah, indoor, I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay.
Let's keep the same requirements we've already mentioned and say that any indoor amplified music has to be ended by 10 o'clock.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Okay, so that, let's see, so we're saying that on 3 then, we're saying for all events, meetings, or functions to be held on premises, all amplified sounds outdoors must end by 7 o'clock Monday through Thursday, 8 o'clock on Friday through Sunday, and no amplified sound outdoors before 1 p.m. on Sunday. On all indoor, all indoor events, amplified sound must be ended by 10 o'clock? Is that what you're saying?
I think
Okay.
amplified music.
Amplified music, okay, thank you. Good, amplified music, okay. Then we're also saying a condition of no fireworks other than the 4th of July, and that it is contingent upon the traffic study with MoDOT and approval of the plans by MoDOT, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we've now got those 6 conditions the county had, and we're adding those 3 additional comments. Do I have, anybody want to discuss this further?
I think we need a motion to accept the conditions
Okay, do we
first.
have a motion to accept those additional conditional uses?
Second.
Okay, I guess we'll go through this real quick. Ms. Barr?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Ms. Carnwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Solly?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so those are now part of the condition. So, do we have now a motion on this proposed conditional use request for CUP 2114 with the additional conditions as stated?
Motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Solly,
Yes.
Spar,
Yes.
Spamer,
Yes.
Mr. Carnwell.
Yes.
And I vote yes also. So the motion with those conditions does pass. Okay, the next item on the agenda is conditional use. Again, the same property, 5570 Highway 94 South and Church Street. The application is CUP 21-15. The property owner, again, is Edgewood Highway 94 Number 1 LLC and Church Street LLC. Applicant, the same. Current zoning, agricultural, agricultural district. 2030 master plan recommends rural conditional use is a landing field, a heliport. Again, part of the same 79.39 acre site, and again, the same location. Staff?
I'll refrain from repeating much of this because it involves the same property.
Right. Just, maybe just address this particular part.
Right. Under the agricultural zoning district, and the applicants propose to keep a portion of the property under agricultural zoning. In the agricultural zoning district, an airfield or landing, airport or landing field requires a conditional use permit. So the range of that could be anywhere from like smart field all the way down to a private air landing strip. In fact, we have a subdivision in northwest St. Charles County that's organized around a private landing strip where the homeowners have their own airplanes and they take off, that, for example. Now, this is not an airfield or an airport. Instead, it's a heliport. And the way it's been explained to me is that it would be for private usage for the Hoffmans and guests. It would not be for commercial flights or tours. That's my understanding. Now, I will say that we have received a communication from the Hoffmans that they're interested in doing tours, yes, by helicopter, but not from this site, from a different site. So if they choose to apply for that, that's going to be a different process and a different question at that location. So reviewing the conditional use permit standards, staff is recommending approval with certain conditions, but I would like to suggest that we add a fourth condition that addresses a limitation that this be used for private as opposed to commercial helicopter usage, and that no helicopter tours or rides to the general public shall be offered or provided.
Could you go over that one more time specifically as to what they are wanting? I understand that it's private, but private for the owners to fly in themselves. What particular specific uses would they be using this for?
The applicants can cover that more specifically. My understanding is it would be for the Hoffmans, the Hoffman Group employees, for instance, or guests.
Okay.
So would that be that guests can bring their own helicopters as well, not just the Hoffman helicopter? I mean, you know, because
Right.
there's different size helicopters.
Right.
And
Please, let's discuss. Thank you.
The code doesn't address that, but
Okay.
that's something you could address with the conditions if you wanted to.
okay.
I did notice that in your analysis, you noted that it was, the specific placement of it was across from the fire department, perhaps specifically so they could use it for hospital transport and other public safety. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, it is proposed to be located basically across from the fire station. We're not obligating or suggesting that it be used for that purpose, but I suppose that it could be if they choose to.
It says here, the location could potentially allow for the availability of helicopter access in the event of a need to transport a person to hospital facilities.
Yeah.
So that's just a potentially, it could, not
Right.
that they're offering to
Yeah, they-
allow that for
They would
public
not
use.
propose that, but that was just our observation.
Okay.
Could I add something on this? When I researched helipads and their markings, basically, any applicant, the conditional use that St. Charles County puts on a property is for the land use. The actual marking of this as private versus a public airfield goes on the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration's mapping for pilots when they're flying. Now, if there's ever an emergency, certainly somebody can put their helicopter down if their engine goes out or something like that. Or if there's a public emergency and Hoffman are offering to let the fire department transport to a hospital helicopter to transport somebody to a hospital, whatever, that's up to them. But when they mark it, it is the FAA that actually administrates and marks that on the map as private so that people don't know that they can't just come in there and party and unless they make special arrangements to use the land from the owners.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, one more. You mentioned unless they make special arrangements, so does that potentially mean that a helicopter tour company could rent this helipad from the private owners and have special arrangements to have tours out of there unless we have some sort of condition that prohibits it?
Well, that's why I suggested that you all consider a condition that addresses whether tours could be made from the property.
What, somebody had mentioned, and I can't tell from this, had said that where the proposed pad was, that there was right next to a cemetery or a church?
That's correct, yes.
So why was, well, I guess we can ask, when they come up, we can ask them about that.
Is it possible to place any sort of conditions on it as to like how often it would be used? Is that a possibility at all?
It's a possibility, but enforcement would be difficult, I think.
Yeah,
I can see that.
I would think so.
Bring these guys up here, see what they do.
Okay, if no other questions, we'll ask the applicants to come up again, please. New application, new swearing in.
Yes.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, again, your name, please.
David Lisinski.
Okay, David, go ahead.
Okay.
Address.
Your address, yeah. sorry.
Yes, 52 High Trails Drive, Eureka, Missouri, 63025.
Great.
Okay, speaking to this third of three issues on the docket tonight, the conditional use for the helipad. The initial intention of the owner was, or I guess one might say is, but certainly one of the two, is to make use of it for tours, as people have put it, around the, the area for the wineries and the river and that sort of thing. It doesn't sound like that's something that we're going to be able to get through, but that is their intention, and it is officially the position that they were taking for it.
Okay.
But
Appreciate your honesty.
But one thing I do want to say is, in addition, it is true that the owners were looking for use of this helipad for their own use and those of guests. We are seeking to have a high-quality facility. The exterior materials you talked about, Mr. Myers, about the restrictions on keeping those materials high and other elements for this type of zoning. And they do have some high-dollar guests that they would like to have come in, or who would simply want to come in. And those guests oftentimes want to arrive at the front door as quickly as possible, rather than like landing at Mid-America and being driven out. So that's another use for this, would be for the Hoffmans themselves and their guests, and I guess friends who would be guests.
I see.
As far as its use for public safety, that is indeed something that they have brought up. Some of the members here have mentioned how in previous designs, the helipad was actually located closer to the church on Church Street, just south of that. But we had rethought that by the time this came out, through discussions and considerations, and said, well, it would be better to be away from the church and closer to the more active area, being, the highway, notwithstanding being far enough away, for FAA and whatnot. And being right across the street from the fire department, so that it could indeed be utilized as a life flight kind of opportunity. There's been some talk here, and rightfully so, about safety on the road, and this is something that the Hoffmans thought might be able to mitigate or kind of alleviate a little bit by being a part of the solution in worst case scenarios.
Can you kind of circle where you're now recommending or asking for it to be? So that's the new spot?
Right, and up here is the fire department, so it's right across the street from that location.
All right. Any questions? Hold on, please, a second. You all have your chance to speak. Just please. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Is the new location, I noticed the old location was on the right by the parking lot, if I recall. Is the new location also by a cemetery, or is it no longer?
It does turn out that there is a cemetery in this area right here.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, those who've been wanting to speak on this, please come forward. And don't forget to speak, fill out your speaker card after you speak.
My name is Carol Seam. You can hold that.
Please, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Carol Seam, 6733 Highway 94 South, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay. Air ambulance. Private ambulance, you cannot take a sick person to the hospital in a regular helicopter. Let's get that on the ground right now. Helicopters, if we call Arch, which is the helicopter, it can land anywhere. It has landed across my house in a bean field and took my child to the hospital. So this, we'll have a helicopter right here, is not for medical reasons. Let's just get that out there. The other thing to remember, we have volunteer fire department. We have volunteer ambulance people. We don't even have a police. We have the sheriff that comes around. So we don't have any other infrastructure to support all of this wondrous things that are supposed to be coming down the pipes. So you got to keep that in mind too. We don't have police. We got to wait for the county sheriff. Last time I was robbed, I beat the sheriff to my house. So we don't have the infrastructure to support what he's proposing, unless you're going to give us more money. But like the helicopter, that's not going to work. And it's going to be disruptive to the kids because it's right by the school. It's also by 94, so it's going to be a traffic problem. That hasn't been thought out well enough. It's going to be a problem.
Thank you, Carol. Did everybody who's spoken fill out their speaker card?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brian Watson. My address is 172 Jackson Street, right adjacent to the helicopter pad.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it as brief as I can here. You know, our town has been slow to develop because we are well removed from everything. It takes 17 miles of twisty road to get out to where we are. And we are self-governed in a unique kind of way in Augusta, which means that the people who are governing and the people who are elected are literally next-door neighbors. Sure. And because of that, it's very difficult for any single person in that governing body to line the coffers at the expense of somebody else, because they are literally their next-door neighbors. And this has helped us not to grow. Now, that development has been slow, but it is organic development. It's a regular growth, and that's how it should be. What we have here is a mega wealthy single individual who had an epiphany, and he decided unilaterally that our town should be the next Napa Valley and people should come here from all over the country. And while we are all glad, me and all of my neighbors, to see a sustainable development for my fellow townies who have businesses and have struggled for a long time, but what is the cost of that? Our town is the size of a small subdivision. A helicopter pad, tours, and balloon rides. We already have trolley, gator rides, carriage rides, soon boat rides. This is a perfect representation of what results when a single individual with this amount of wealth and power exploits the opportunity, which is what Dave has said. Our lives and homes are the raw resource being utilized to increase the wealth of a few at the expense of many, in the subjective name of improvement. Using medevac to justify this economic development is transparent to the vast majority of these people who have seen the medevac, as this young woman pointed out, land as close as they can to an accident when lives are at stake. A helicopter at takeoff and below 500 feet creates 87 decibels of noise. At 1,000 feet, it's still 78 decibels. A firing hot air balloon is 88 decibels. This is equivalent to a DC-9 jetliner at 1 nautical mile above the earth, or a freight train at a mere 8 meters away. Okay? It's hard to imagine that anyone would support this idea if it were happening to them. Our little town is mostly residential with B&Bs intermingled with houses. There's a deep cultural fabric here that's been organically developed with many of these residents who are 3 and 4 generations deep. Okay? The term increase and decrease value is used a lot, but that value is a monetary consideration, and there's more to look at here. Webster's has defined tyranny as a rigorous condition imposed by some outside agency or force, and Thomas Jefferson said that tyranny need only gain a foothold for good conscience people to stand by and do nothing. And over 400 people have signed a petition to stop this action in a town of 290 people, according to the 2019 census. For this reason, I feel confident that zoning and planning will make a recommendation against this, because any other outcome demonstrates that the direct will of the people is being circumvented for some capital gain here. Not everyone places capital gain at the top of the list. Character qualities like trust, truth, community, respect, they pay less money. But, that is who we are as Augusta. It's a very tight-knit community.
Sure,
now,
I
I'm not
understand
windbagging here. Many of my fellow veterans, I'm a Navy veteran. I spent 6 years in the United States Navy. I've lived in Augusta for 10 years. I was born and raised in St. Charles County. We decided to move back here 10 years ago because of what and who Augusta is. Many of my fellow veterans, some suffering PTSD, moved here to get away from helicopters and the lights and the noise. And I don't say this to exploit those people. I say this to proudly represent those people. Okay?
Thank you.
We are currently working toward a meeting through the American Legion with these veterans, and we are going to invite Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Brazel to ensure that they fully understand what is at stake to protect these soldiers' interests above all else. Mr. Hoffman.
I appreciate you. There's a lot of people who might want to speak.
I have one other thing to say,
Okay,
Mr. Cleary, please.
finish.
Mr. Hoffman has quoted the Bible saying, that he believes that to whom much has been given, much is expected. And I would say the new covenant of doing unto your neighbor as they would do unto you is just as important. With compassion and love, we the people of Augusta respectfully request that the county and Mr. Hoffman understand we are thankful of these current improvements, hopeful for the future possibilities, but we regard helicopters and balloons as simply over the line. Please hear the voice of the people.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, do we have anybody? Okay, thank you. So what's going on here is the microphone on the stand is having a little bit of trouble picking up the sound, so we were going to ask anyone coming forward from this point forward to speak into the microphone of the podium, okay?
And it's adjustable, so you can.
You can adjust it. Okay, thank you. So please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Sherry McMillan. I live
Sherry.
at 7401 Melrose Avenue
Okay.
in University City, Missouri.
Yes, Sherry, go ahead.
And I already filled out a card.
Thank you. Very good.
So I am a long-term member of the congregation at Mid-America Buddhist Association. My family's been going there for 15 years. It is our Buddhist church. My daughter has grown up going there. I am also a lay teacher at MABA. In, say, Catholic terms, it would be like a lay minister. So I give sermons, I give talks, I lead retreats. I give advice to people who come who need advice at times. And I was asked to speak for the congregation at MABA and the monastics at MABA today.
Go ahead. And they're located right
On
now?
Schindler Road.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So
Okay.
opposite all of this
Okay,
across
okay.
94.
Please proceed.
We've been there for 3 decades.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was asked to create a petition for our members to sign, which I did. I had to do it very quickly. I've never done this before, and I had to do it in just a few days.
Okay,
But-
and excuse me, is this for the heliport that they're?
This is
describing?
specifically on the helipad.
Okay, thank you, go
yes.
ahead.
We're opposed to it because of the noise it would create. We're already seeing increased noise from wineries that they're expanding in the area, including one that we can see from our facility.
Uh-huh.
And having a helicopter go in right across the road, especially if it's flying tours or even if it's flying family members in and out. I don't know how often they're going to come. Are they going to come on weekends? Are they going to fly in 50 friends? Are they going to fly in 100 friends for a big party? We don't know how many it's
Right.
going to be. But the noise of even just a few of those would be extremely detrimental to our congregation and to the people who are not members of our congregation who come to visit us, to learn to meditate, to learn mindfulness. We have people come who have been asked to come visit us for medical and health reasons, for mental health reasons. We have people who come because their doctor sent them to us to learn this, to help lower their blood pressure, to reduce their stress from their job. We have doctors come, we have nurses come, we have therapists come, we have policemen come, we have social workers come.
Right.
We have
Right.
soldiers come.
Gotcha.
We would not be able to carry out peaceful teaching practices if there are helicopters flying around.
Okay, well, we
So-
appreciate the comments. Anything else you'd like to add?
We had 138 people sign the MABA petition.
Okay,
When I was doing that, I thought some of our members also live in the Augusta area, so I should make one for the Augusta area specifically. And the petition that was just mentioned, I put it up this weekend, and 436 people had signed this by the time I printed it out before I came over here this afternoon.
Okay, great.
And people were still signing it when I left home.
pardon me? Did you get that for the record, the number of people in the petition?
416 signed this one
Okay,
that I've printed out, more were signing when I left.
okay,
138 had signed the MABA petition.
Okay, okay,
So more
great.
than 500 people have signed
okay,
the
we will
petition
put
total.
that in the records.
Do you need copies of those? So
Okay.
can you give her copies of those?
Yes. Do you need paper copies or electronic copies? Okay. I'll
Okay.
send you the paper copy.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Uh,
And did you fill out a speaker card?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you for the opportunity to come. I don't live here, but I've benefited
Yeah,
from
sure.
what's in Augusta, and everyone else has said. Reading the comments that people made on the Augusta petition, I'm just especially moved that this helicopter should
right,
not be there.
right. We actually have those, a lot of those comments in our records. Thank
Okay,
you.
so there are comments on here, too.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. And if you give them, okay. Okay, any?
Just grab him.
Okay. 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 Glenda, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Glenda Dreyer,
Okay.
1401 Duke Road, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to read a letter from two of the residents who live on Jackson. They're both 94 years old, Paul and Bernice Kemner. They would like to have come tonight, but Paul is not able to due to his health, of course, at that age, and Bernice needed to stay home to take care of him. It says, from Paul and Bernice Kemner. First of all, their little envelope says, please, no helicopter.
Okay.
Okay, that was from them. It says here, they've been Augusta residents for the past 72 years, with Paul a lifelong resident, 94 years. Our home is located on Jackson Street, with the back property line being adjacent to the west property line of the property in question. We would be directly under the flight path of any helicopter landing or taking off from the west. The noise created would be a distraction for school children on the side of the property. The noise would also interfere with church services on Sunday mornings at the nearby Lutheran and Ebenezer churches. The noise would also be a distraction for burial service at the nearby Augusta and Lutheran cemeteries. Signed, Paul Kemner.
Thank you
That's
very
number
much.
one. Okay. I'm going to read a couple things actually here on helicopters, first of all. Helicopter noise. Excessive noise from helicopters is a growing national issue. Police departments, news stations, tourism companies all utilize low-flying, roaring helicopters to the great detriment of citizens living below. Unfortunately, the FAA has taken no meaningful action against helicopter noise. The FAA's failure to address the issue of helicopter noise is an outrage. This is talking about people of Los Angeles need relief. There's absolutely no reason to believe that voluntary efforts are going to reduce noise levels. No one should be subjected to the constant noise from low-flying helicopters. This noise is extremely irritating and disruptive. The FAA and other federal agencies should be protecting the public interest, not corporate interests, and they're not. Helicopter noise is also a major issue on the south side of Chicago. Okay, we're not Chicago, but you're getting the point.
Okay.
A damning 1999 report by the Natural Resource Council says that helicopter noise can lead to sleep deprivation, cause cardiovascular and gastrointestinal problems, as well as reduced learning abilities among school children. And the school is right there next to all this. So that was, I just wanted to
Okay.
break that. Okay.
Okay, very good.
So, regards to myself and the community. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 58 years ago to almost this day, made a famous speech that I have a dream. All of us in this room have dreams. Those dreams are much different for myself than what Mr. Hoffman is proposing. I'm a fifth-generation Augusta resident. My great-great-grandparents came over from Germany back in the early 1800s with dreams, and they came to Augusta, and they helped to found the community that we all live in and we love.
Sure.
And those dreams have gone through generations. Both sides of my family are from Augusta. And here I am yet today speaking of our dreams.
Right.
And our dreams are not what Mr. Hoffman has turned our town into, the circus that he has as his dream. This is not our dream. We appreciate the quiet community that we've known and loved for all the years of our lives, such as these Kemners, 94 years old, and suddenly they have to put up with this helicopter in their backyard. I have to put up with helicopters and hot air balloons and these other farmers in the area. Have you ever been around a bunch of cattle or horses when these are flying over? Well, I have, and I about got stampeded because these animals do not like this whoosh of hot air balloons. And you can see the hot air balloons in the other picture. So that wasn't on his CUP, but it is on his talks that he's given. In his EDC speech, he specifically said tourism tours.
Okay.
Not just private.
Okay.
Okay, so I just-
We'll address that with the
Okay, well, I'm just
applicant
making
when it
sure
comes
that
up.
you realize that
Okay.
this is not something the town of Augusta wants.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do. Christina.
And your name? Go ahead,
Use
this
that
one right here.
Christina Kolchiski, 1017 North Drive, Morrison Woods, Missouri. So I'm it's a little bit awkward to follow behind all of these most eloquent speeches. I just have one question for the council. Why in the world would you vote yes on this with so much vocal opposition? It's for the benefit of one person and his quote-unquote guest. And by the way, we've all been to hotels and we've all been to Disney World. We know that a guest is a paying person at their hotel. So again, why would you vote for this? I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, we'll discuss that. Okay, any other comments? Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury.
I do.
And please state your name and address for public records.
Anthony Schultenhenrich, 1239 Osage Ridge Road. So I don't directly live in Augusta. It's a couple miles away, kind of up in the hills. But it's actually in between the Emmaus home and where, Augusta is, so it could be a very good flight path on the way there. And I don't know if anybody else is aware of this, but the Washington Airport is less than 10 miles from there. And that's pretty sufficient place to land a helicopter, if you were to ask me. And also, it's a pretty good view if you want to drive down the back roads, too. So that could give their guests, a pretty good view on their way to, the establishment. Also, that might give the county a little bit of notion to pave the road down there. It's a disaster. So that might help all the county people too, it might make the people around happy, as well, and that are traveling through. Make it a little easier to get to Augusta, kind of comes in the back way a little bit, not off 94, with the traffic and everything. So I think personal gain helicopter pad probably won't make too many people happy, and I think it's a little much. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any more questions before we bring up the application? And is it hopefully it's something new that we haven't discussed, but come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under pains and penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name.
My name is Kim Seam. I'm
And your address?
6730 South Highway 94, Augusta.
Okay.
My family we're farmers outside of Augusta. And one of my major concerns, Highway 94 just in general, is moving equipment, because like someone commented earlier, we do have to move it all over the countryside. And from the Warren County line on 94 past Klondike, almost to Matson, Highway 94 is a double yellow line, and it has maybe in most places a 12 to 15 inch side, gravel on the shoulder, thank you. And so it's not easy to move equipment. We really can't hardly do it without, you've got to have flag people on both sides.
Sure.
And people are passing like crazy. It's a double yellow line. But again, because we don't have police patrols out there as much as we probably could use, especially with more people coming out now, it just increases the danger.
Gotcha.
And yes, those helicopters do land absolutely anywhere, because that's what they need to do. You don't fly a helicopter here when the accident's over here.
Certainly.
So that's something to keep in mind. That entire white area off of Jackson Street is a cemetery. It's the city cemetery. So there are people in there that are the forefathers of Augusta. It's pretty full. So that's one thing to also keep in mind. Our elementary school, kindergarten through 6th grade, is on the south side of the property. It's probably about a block away. It's about 2 blocks away from all of this stuff. So we've got a lot of, elementary kids. We need to keep that in mind as far as the helicopters go. Their concentration levels are, is hard anyway for these little guys. So to have a helicopter coming over, and frankly, I appreciate your honesty in saying he plans to do tours, because Mr. Hoffman did comment on his economic development speech that was exactly one of the things that he wanted to do.
Okay.
And so we feel like it's really important to realize all the things that this is going to have an impact on. And I know you're hearing it and you're hearing it again, but it's that important.
Okay.
We have livestock. When you're trying to work livestock, the helicopters coming over constantly low, it's just, people come to Augusta because they want the peace and the serenity that came with it. I don't understand how someone can say they came to Augusta and they liked it, and then they want to change everything about it. That to me doesn't make sense.
Right.
At all.
Okay.
So, that's me.
Okay, well, I have one more question.
Yes.
Did you fill out a speaker card? Okay. I think we've said most of the things that need to be said. Anybody else, otherwise we'll bring up the applicant. I think we've all said pretty much everything.
You can drive from Washington to Jostown just like everyone else.
Comment accepted. Okay. David, you've heard the comments. Any comments in terms of, I think the issue is it's noise, it's distractions, it's the safety, it's the fact that a private helicopter isn't licensed to take people. I mean, there's a lot of issues here. Do you want to address any or all?
Well, I guess I can address them all by saying that I understand where they're coming from, and I do believe that the statements that have been made by the public here are not, that it would be difficult to argue against. Helicopters do have certain noise levels.
Okay.
And they're, and that's essentially what they spoke to, was just the noise level of the
There was a
helicopter.
comment, too, about hot air balloons. That was not stated anywhere.
Yeah,
tonight.
the original sketch that was done, actually, if we, I think it might be on this one here, that was then translated, yeah, here we are. The original sketch that was done was then translated into the document that you all received here. The hot air balloon, which, by the way, would be tethered It wouldn't be flying around and firing over livestock or anything of that nature. It would be tethered at that location. So that's the one comment I had about the balloon, but
But won't it be flying eventually?
well, it would be more of a lookout point. It would not be flying around the area. It
So
wouldn't
it's
go
just
up.
going to go up on our rope and come back down?
In essence, or stay at stay moored.
So you're going to use a hot air balloon for decoration, is what you're saying? It's not going to fly around?
Generally, I mean, that's not a bad way to put it, to understand the purpose.
Are people going to be in it?
Well, a lot of those details have yet to be worked out. It's an interesting idea that was presented because it was something that was thought to be not thrown out right away. We wanted to keep it, we wanted to pursue it, and have an opportunity for people to, speaking of looking out and having sights and views and things of that nature.
So, right now, it's not a part of this plan, correct?
Well, I guess technically, with respect to what was actually presented, one could claim, dotting i's and crossing t's, that it's not part of the plan if it wasn't literally on this document that was created specifically after the original concept plan was introduced.
So is it technically
is it
a
on
part
there?
of this or not? The hot air balloon?
What we're lacking is a distinct narrative description describing all the proposed use in detail. What we do not have is a description saying that it's for public tours or not for public tours, the hours of operation, is there parking or not parking, is there a hot air balloon or not involved. So what we have at this point is what's been presented on this concept plan, which is the area for a helicopter landing pad, but beyond that, we don't have further information.
Okay. So then, if we were to pass this, any of this stuff could go?
Well, which,
The heliport and hot air balloon could pass. If we right now said yes to this in its current form, either or could be done, or they have to come back and get other special permits for hot air balloon.
There's three things you can do. You could recommend for approval as presented, recommend approval with conditions, or recommend for denial. So if you wanted to address whether or not certain aspects would or would not be allowed, you could do that through his proposed conditions. Or you could just say that we need more time, give the applicant a chance to address details and come back to you and defer consideration until the next month. Or you can say that the proposal is too indistinct or it would interfere with these conditional use permit standards for neighbors, and you would recommend for denial. Those are some of the options you have.
So why is the airport not an option for the builder? 10 miles away, you're away from other people, you already have traffic, you have FAA regulations. Why is that not an option?
well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that other options aren't an option. What I would say is that this is the option that the applicant or the owner had requested that we put forth. So I guess you could say that the airport is an option, limousines are an option, or the helipad is an option. And at this juncture, that's the option that he was selecting for the reasons that we gave previously.
Does he, I believe that I heard earlier that he already has helipads at certain other locations in the area. Is that correct?
Well, I personally can't speak to that myself.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, and we'll take it back. Okay, so we'll bring that back to the committee, so.
Okay.
Any discussion here?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander.
I'd like to address really four things. Number one, I mentioned, it's been about 2.5 hours ago, that when we, on the county council, considered the agricultural tourism district, that we never really imagined something like this. Well, I guarantee you, we never imagined helicopters, okay? That's I'm 100% sure of that. Second of all, obviously, there's a lot of different plans, a lot of different ideas. Some of them you agree with, some of them you don't. My own personal opinion is this is an extremely dumb idea.
Agreed.
Extremely.
Agreed.
Number three, I don't believe there's any need for any helipad or any hot air balloons. I think that this
Thank you, Mr. Hollander, for your comments. Any other comments?
I agree, and I think that several people had commented that responsible growth, they don't mind that, but this is a bit excessive, and they should get a vote and have a voice for where they live, so I agree with that.
Yeah, I too think that this is against the spirit of what that original zoning was for, and I also would disagree with any kind of hot air balloon on it in addition. So we still need an amendment or a motion to vote on it, so.
I motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Jackson?
No.
Ms. Sally?
No.
Ms. Barr?
No.
Ms. Bamer?
No.
Mr. Carnwell?
No.
Mr. Hollander?
No.
And I vote. The amendment fee is down. Okay, so I don't know if you all want to stay for continue, but we'll give you, if people are done here tonight, we'll give you about a minute to get out, and then we're going to start the next one.
Thank you very much.
Drive safely back to Augusta.
Yes, drive safely. Think about how convenient it would be with a helicopter.
You make recommendations to the county.
Yeah, my brother, I have three brothers. Actually,
When we are an advisory board, and so that's why.
Wow, yeah, all four of them. A lot of slow pitch off.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I say three different times.
I'm a long
that
time
the
St.
final
Charles
vote will be
city
by
guy.
the county council on the 13th of September.
We are.
Am I correct?
Well, hopefully this was, everybody, got, voice.
Denies the rezoning recommendation.
Right.
The conditional use application.
I would think so. I would think so, sure.
Yeah, and again, like I said, that was something that,
And deny all conditional use.
Or they
Yeah.
could
Oh, yeah, I
override
understand,
and
but-
approve everything.
yeah, I think.
I mean, those are all
again,
possibilities.
that was
We are an
on,
advisory board, but I think when we speak out
what
like
they
in
were
that
following at
last
the time
one,
is not the ordinance.
7-0, I think they are gonna,
Yeah, I would.
Right, right, but we are not elected officials, and it's the elected officials that will have. This night's getting long. Let's continue. All right, the next application is a rezoning request for 910 East Highway N. The application number is RZ21-15. The property owner is R. Stephen and Catherine M. Barnett, and Donald C. and Marianne Mollison. The applicant is Lombardo Homes of St. Louis LLC. The current zoning is A, Agricultural District. The requested zoning is R3B, Multifamily District, on essentially 29.56 acres, and R1E, Single Family Residence, on 47.11 acres. The 2030 Master Plan recommends low-density residential use. The rezoning area is approximately 76.67 acres, and the location is on the south side of Highway N, approximately 900 feet east of Gallup Lane, near the cities of Wentzville, O'Fallon, and Lake St. Louis. It's in County Council District Number 2. Staff.
All right, this property is actually several different parcels here. This is 910 up here at the top. Oh, can we switch over to maps, please? It actually starts up here, and the parcel comes, this other parcel comes around right here and comes down. If you remember, a couple of months ago, we did go through a rezoning adjacent to this property. The plan is for self-storage units and some outdoor storage. This property is requesting two separate zonings, and I'll discuss that in a minute. There is a new development, a sewer treatment plant that will be going in to the south along on Dargan Creek down there. This is in anticipation of further development to the east of this property, and the City of O'Fallon's development across Hopewell Road and on Dyer Road. I'm not sure exactly how they pronounce it down there. So as mentioned, the wrong one. Sorry. The plat is not presented to you tonight. It is still in concept form and it's still undergoing review. The area that they're asking for rezoning includes two separate areas. The first part is the R3B, which is the higher density residential, and then also the R1E. That's 47.11 acres, and the R3B is 29.55 acres. Directly, as I mentioned, directly to the east in the City of O'Fallon, or going through the City of O'Fallon right now, is another development. This is, and it's a little bit larger than this one, but this is more of a, if you want to consider it a mirror image of that. There is a proposal for interconnectivity on the roadways. And I also want to mention that a traffic study has been completed for both of these proposed subdivisions, with Hopewell Road to the east and then Highway N. And there are specific recommendations that would be addressed on the preliminary plat that from that traffic study that we would ask for and present to you possibly next month. The land use, as we pointed out, is currently for the low-density residential, that's 1 to 4 units per acre. One other thing, though, that I would like to point out is that land use study for this area was actually prepared 15 to 20 years ago, and quite a bit has actually changed with the Highway N expansion and development moving west. So that is something to keep in mind, that as you develop residentially in these areas, there is going to be a need for some commercial and other type of development and some high-density development. We do have a need for some affordable housing in this area. So with that, staff has reviewed the application, and we are recommending that you recommend approval to the County Council for this rezoning.
Okay, any questions of staff?
I guess the question I had, the traffic study, that's the scope of that study was really looking at the potential impacts on Highway N. Is that what the scope of that was? And has that been reviewed by MoDOT?
Yeah, that and the interconnectivity with Hopewell Road.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, you mentioned that the rezoning is both the R3B and R1D, I guess. And so are we voting on these individually, or is it a voting yes or no as the package is presented?
Well, that's two separate requests.
You could vote either way. Either way it's recommended, you could take one vote. Or if for some reason you thought you needed to break up the votes, you could do that in two different votes. But if you voted yes on one of them, you'd be left with a remainder area that would have to be, well, I guess that remainder area could remain under the current zoning, but.
Well, we remain under the current zoning, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's own agricultural now, so.
Okay. Okay, very good. Anybody, any other questions? Okay, at this moment, I'd ask the applicant to come forward, please. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Doug Nance, Lombardo Homes, 4 Research Park, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304.
Okay, Doug, go ahead.
Here to present 76 acres that we're proposing for two different zonings, the R3 and then the R1E. The R3 abuts Highway N and then transitions back to the single family to the south.
Okay. And how many units are proposed in that R3 section?
So there's 180 vertical apartments which abut Highway N right there where you can see the lake up to the north.
There's
And then there's
180
another
there, okay.
130 garden villas, which are attached units, single story, for rent as well. And then it transitions back to the 77 and the 90-foot lots, which you have 43 77-footers, and then another 65 90-foot lots in the rear.
Okay, so, okay, real quick math, 310 units in the R3?
Correct.
And I didn't catch both the numbers. You said 43 and what was the second one?
At 65.
And 65, so 108. So 108 in the, how many acres is that back section that's 108 units?
The back section is, don't have that on.
So it's like 40.
47.11.
47, so.
I believe the
okay.
front's like 22.5.
22, so the density on that is a couple an acre, okay. And then the first part is on 30 acres, roughly. So, okay. Any questions for applicant?
Are these apartments, condos? What are they?
So in the front, you have vertical apartments, which will have a clubhouse, pool, other amenities will be provided. As we get to the preliminary plan, we'll be able to identify all that. The second set of is a single family for rent. It's targeted for an empty nester or business professional, people that are at different stages of their life that don't want to own. They're busy, they're on the go. They have limited traffic. They have a different traffic pattern than your normal residential buyers. So, and they average about 1.7 people per unit in those, and about 1.5 cars per unit as well. They will have an attached 2-car garage in the villa product as well, in each unit, and they're all 2-bedroom, high-end.
What do you mean by vertical apartments?
So
specifically,
the front will be your traditional 2 to 3 story apartments. I have a rendering I can show you.
okay.
So there's a rendering of the apartments that are right there on Highway N. The other thing with the villas also, which is unique to them, is that they are all ADA compliant. So I'll be able to speak to that more as we bring the preliminary plan, but it's a very unique development in that sense.
So, let's see, so there's just one entrance, so, correct?
So there'll be multiple entrances because the other developer to the east, which is now being zoned in O'Fallon, there'll be access through their development and ours out to Hopewell Road, where there'll be a signal at Hopewell and N.
Now, but for right now, with what we're voting on, because we have no control over what the O'Fallon does, correct?
Yeah, so there's a shared
There's
entrance
one
between
driveway,
us
though.
and St. Louis Storage, which was zoned a few months ago
Okay.
at Highway N.
So roughly 418 units with who knows how many cars per, coming in and out of that one? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, the other development will be developed before ours.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, can you tell me, like, as far as the apartments are concerned, do you have dedicated parking spaces for those apartments? How many per apartment? How does that
So
work?
we're meeting the county code for parking for the apartments. So the parking will go all the way around the apartment complex with parking spots. I don't have the exact number, but we are meeting the number per the code. And then the garden villas will have the 2-car garage plus 2 more parking spots within the driveway. So total, you can support 4 cars.
Are these
For
going
each
to be
unit.
considered like luxury apartments?
They will be considered luxury apartments, along with the villas. They're high-end, high-rent for that. So you'll be able to, it's a progression, so different stages of your life. You can rent from a vertical apartment, or we have horizontal, which is the ranch style, or you have your single family that you can rent. So you could have multiple generations living in the same area.
So all that is rent, though, no ownership?
The single families will all be
Okay,
sold.
will be owned.
Yeah, that'll be
Okay.
by Lombardo, under the
Okay.
Lombardo Homes name.
But all the R3 will be rental.
It will all be rent, correct.
This doesn't have so much to do with the zoning, but it looks like the parking lot encroaches on the other parcel.
So we've fixed that since, in the preliminary plan, we'll show that we've brought that over and reconfigured a building to make that. So we didn't, but we have been working with St. Louis Storage with that shared entrance that we're going to develop with them.
And what about water? Where's the
So-
water going to go to?
So water, water's coming from Highway N, and then it'll also connect over to the other development once they have water, but along Highway N, there's,
Are those 2 ponds retention ponds, and that's a pool, I'm guessing, or retention pond, or what?
so that'll be an actual retention pond within that, and then there's a pool as well within the apartment complex that'll service them.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll, if there's any comments, we'll bring you back up. Okay, any questions, comments from anyone here in the public? Okay.
You guys always have such spirited debates?
Yes.
Oh, this is a quiet one tonight.
It gets worse.
It gets worse.
So, it has. So please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead. Your name and address.
My name is Danny Blackshear. I live at 374 Branchport Drive, Chesterfield, Missouri.
Okay, Daniel.
I am presently the Vice President of All-American Athlete, and we have a children's center on Hopewell Road. Just a little bit of history about myself. First, I want to thank the commission for allowing me a few moments. Believe me, I won't take as long as the debate on Augusta.
That's good. I've got a gavel here.
I grew up in the Graterville area of North St. Louis back in the day. Our neighborhood was rich with places for kids in our neighborhoods to go meet, develop as young kids, adults, and become good people. In 2017, my partner and I came before the same council asking for approval of the All-American Athlete Children's Center, which is now has been constructed. We've been going for the last 3 years now. The council voted in favor, and it gave its unanimous approval for the project for the kids in our program to have a close, safe place to come, like those centers in my neighborhood. The exact location of the Children's Center now sits on land that was once slave land, or was given to a slave that moved up from Virginia. The center, the location where the center is now, there was a home or a building that all the kids in the neighborhood used to all come congregate to. So we just thought it was pretty ironic that the facility was built on said property. The site where the Children's Center is also has some deep history, as was once in the possession of Francis M. Howell, whom I think there's a school district named after him in St. Charles. He was either sold or gave the land to the slave by the name of Isa Morton. And right on the corner of Hopewell Road and Inn is Hopewell Baptist Church. There's a cemetery that's attached to the Baptist church, and that's where Mr. Isom and his wife still lie in state. I also think that this property could be part of the 40 acres and a mule that Missouri was part of back in the 1800s. What's the connection, you say, between Lombardo Homes? Lombardo Homes was a key partner in the vision of All-American Athlete and the Children's Center, and they helped it come alive. The property and development will be connecting the future to the past and keep the community spirit that surrounds the Children's Center and keeping it alive. Lombardo Homes has helped with the tradition of the kids in the neighborhood having a safe place to go meet and become better citizens. So I say to the council, why not? We at the All-American Athlete Children's Center encourages the Planning and Zoning Commission to vote in favor of the application in RZ 221-15 and the 2030 master plan. Thanks for the couple of seconds.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back. Let's see, there no comments to you, so we won't bring you back. Any discussion here on the board about it?
Again, this is a booming area. I don't think we have any idea how many homes and so on are going to be going into this specific area in the next 5 years. You know, all I can say is that the other developments that we've had with Lombardo Homes have been very positive. All of our interactions with them have been very positive. So.
Yeah, my concern is not of the quality. It's of that density of units and access to N. And I know there are plans of redoing N, but you know, it seems like at least on the north side of N, I guess it's north at that point, it's a little bit, it's more like the 1 to 4 acre development, and it seems to me that it's been consistent, but then, you know, if we do have some other stuff developing on this side, we haven't seen it yet. But I am concerned about the density of this R3 area. It's a lot of units, a lot of traffic coming in and out of N there. It seems to me if it was all R1E at the same density the back part is, that would be very compatible to what's already been developed. That's my thoughts. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I just know some of the development as far as plans along that Highway N corridor in O'Fallon, they've got some commercial zoning with frontage along Highway N, so they're planning for it to become more dense as well, is what what staff recommended too, as far as just looking at the plan and maybe needing to adjust it to be more high density because of the growth of Highway N. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, do we have a motion on this rezoning of RZ 21-15?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Sally?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Barr?
Yes.
Ms. Bamer?
Yes.
Mr. Carnwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Okay, motion passes. The next one is preliminary plat for Ramos subdivision, 2110 Hepperman Road. It's application PRE 21-14. The owner, property owner developer is Willen Perez Ramez and Maria Ramez. Its engineering surveyor is Landmark Surveying Company. The property zoning is RR, single-family residential. Proposed lots 2, the parcel size 6, location on the east side of Hepperman Road, approximately 415 feet south of Highway N near the city of Wentzville, Council District 2. Staff.
Okay, if you remember, you did recommend approval of their rezoning from agricultural to RR district, 3-acre minimum. That was a 6-acre piece. They're in the plating process right now. Staff has reviewed it. It does meet the technical requirements of section 410.480D. So we are recommending approval with a request granting a waiver for the driveway access to Hepperman Road.
So are we asking for that to be a recorded easement?
Basically, yes, it would be either an easement or access by easement across from the other property. We are working on that. You can approve it with the waiver.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, and I'm guessing you're the applicant.
I'm just stepping in for him. He's out of town.
Okay, so if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Could you please state your name again and address?
Dana Dorn.
Dana Dorn. Okay, Dorn. Dana, please go forward.
1002 West Highway N,
Thank you.
Wentzville, Missouri, 63385.
Thank you, sir. So, did you want to explain this in greater detail, or are you here just simply to answer questions?
I live right across the street, a little bit, right there on the corner.
Okay.
On Hepperman.
Yes, sir.
And he's building his home down just a little bit on that 6 acres there.
Okay.
Is where he's wanting to build.
Uh-huh. Okay, very good. Does anyone have any questions to Dana? Okay. If there's any questions, we'll bring you back up.
Thank you.
Is there any questions or comments from the public here? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for our committee here to discuss. Any thoughts on this particular development here? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. So we are voting on this with the waiver included, correct? Okay, that's okay. So, let's see, who did I leave off on? Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Sally.
Yes.
Miss Barr.
Yes.
Spamer.
Yes.
Ms. Carnwell.
Yes.
Mr. Hollander.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes. The next application is preliminary plat for Cox Hill Estates, 1209 Cox Hill Road, application number PRE 21-16. Property owner, developer is Jason Arf, RJ Arf Construction, engineering surveyor is St. Charles Engineering Surveying Company. Its property zoning is R1E, single-family residential district. Proposed lots is 2. The parcel size is 1 acre, and it's located on the west side of Cox Hill Road, approximately 250 feet southeast of Lexington Drive. It's in Council District 7. Staff.
Okay, this property is zoned R1E, 7,000 square foot minimum lot size, located on Cox Hill Road. This is a request to split this 1 acre lot. The layout is shown here. There is an existing residence. They will meet all the required setbacks with the new plat, and the new lot would be to the south of the existing home. So it's a simple 2-lot subdivision.
Okay. Very good.
Staff,
Anybody?
staff is recommending approval. It does meet the technical requirements.
Okay. And I assume then they'd be able to have their utilities right there off Cox Hill, I would think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's located. I believe it's Quiver River, Missouri American.
Okay. All right, very good. Does anyone have any other questions of staff? Okay, would the applicant, who's already here, please come forward and raise your right hand? Could you please, okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, please state your name again and your address.
Jason Orff, 3501 Bluffview Drive, St. Charles, 63303.
All right, Jason, please go forward and proceed. Discuss this.
Just simply subdividing the lot. It was an old farmhouse that was sitting on basically a half an acre. It's like 0.6, and there's already curb cut to the other lot. When I purchased the property, a guy came to me saying that he needed out of it. I flip properties, so I got it and decided to subdivide the lot.
Okay, so the existing house is, that's still in the same ownership, but you're...
Yeah, I own the house still, yeah.
You own the house and you're subdividing this other one and put another house up?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, we'll bring you back up if there's any questions or comments. Okay, we now open this up to the public. Are there any questions or comments on 1209 Cox Hill Road? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Does anyone have any thoughts on this particular parcel and the subdivision of it?
Pretty straightforward.
It seems to me to be a very good subdivision, and it's got immediate access, all utilities there, and it seems to fit into the neighborhood, and I would recommend voting for it. So can we have a recommendation one way or the other? I can't recommend, Dan.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, so Ms. Barr?
Yes.
Spamer?
Yes.
Mr. Carnwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hollander?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Solly?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Motion passes. The next item is a preliminary plat for Boschert Acres, 5535 Blaze Station Road, application number PRE 21-17. The property owner developer is Paul F. and Jody L. Boschert. Bax Engineering Company is the engineer. Property zoning is R1E, single-family residential district, proposed one lots. It's 3.13 acres. It's the corner of Blaze Station Road and Orchard Farm Road. It's in County District 6. Staff.
Okay, this plat is a 3-acre cutout from a farm. The reason that they have to do the 3 acres, even though it's R1E zoning, is for septic system support. Other than that, staff has reviewed it. It does meet the technical requirements for section 410.380. Staff is recommending approval.
I think I understood what you said.
Yeah.
It's
As long
almost
as I'm not
11,
walking in my sleep, you're okay.
Okay. All right, could the applicant please come forward? Is there a helipad on this?
Well, I've got this book here I'm going to read from. But.
Okay, appreciate that. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and address for the public records.
Rodney Buschert, 940 Palm Drive, St. Charles, Missouri.
Good.
6301. The 40 acres was owned by my mom and dad. They've passed away. They built the house in 2005, I think is what it was.
Okay.
And we sold that off to my brother and sister-in-law, and we just want to rezone.
So are you rebuilding on that same site?
No, it's there. It's there. The house is there. It was built in 2005.
Okay, so you've just partitioned it off the 40 acres?
No, just 3.13.
3 acres.
Yeah, 3.13 is all.
It's 40 acres altogether.
Oh, no, I mean off the original section, right?
3 acres off of the 40.
Yeah, okay, okay, I follow you. Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, we'll bring you up
Hit me with
if there's...
something, come on.
Pardon me?
Hit me with something, come on. We made it
Are you
all
going to
night.
have hot air balloons?
We're thinking about helicopters, though.
Okay, aside from those questions, are there any other questions? And did you fill out your speaker card?
I'll do that.
All right. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council, or committee, or whatever we are, and we will discuss. Is there any discussion on this property? It seems like it meets all the technical. Any comments? Okay, we need a motion.
Motion.
We have a motion to, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Bamer,
Yes.
Mr. Cornwell,
Yes.
Mr. Hollander,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson, sorry.
Yes.
Ms. Solly,
Yes.
Ms. Bear,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. Okay, let's see, we don't have any tabled or continuing items. We need approval from the July 21st meeting. Do we have any comments or questions, additions, subtractions out of the July 21st, 2001 regular meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Now, planning and zoning updates. Robert?
Very quickly.
You guys can leave if you want to.
You're good.
You don't have to sit and listen to me. You're more than welcome to, but
Rules of procedure. Counselor Brian Wise helped the chair prepare draft rules of procedure for your consideration. We actually, originally, were going to have it on this month's agenda, but when we saw that the chair was going to be gone and also a couple of members, we thought it best to move it to next month. So it'll be on for next month for your consideration. And you don't have to approve those, or you can approve those, or you can approve them with amendments. That's up to you. It's basically dictates about how meetings are run. And for instance, if you wanted to adopt a rule that, to continue something, you'd have 3 commissioners must vote in favor, something like that. I mean, that would be an example. That's one thing. Second, you may know that our master plan tries to incorporate the comprehensive plans and master plans of the municipalities just outside of their jurisdiction in their growth areas. We try to reflect those so there's not a conflict. So periodically we'll receive communications from municipalities saying we've updated our master plan, here's our most recent one. Can you please work to reflect this in your next master plan?
How often do you update that then, because these things obviously are coming on a regular basis, aren't they? From the cities?
Every couple of years, we'll get one from a city.
Okay.
Where it's been updated. We refer to those and use those each time we update the master plan. The last time was in 2019 when the county's master plan was updated.
Gotcha.
So conceivably, it would be in 2024. I did want to let you know we received a resolution passed by the city of St. Charles amending their master plan that in the growth area north of the city, that they're looking at future residential development for 1 acre and 3 acre residential lots, and they have certain development standards that they're looking for. Obviously, the 1 acre would assume that sanitary sewer service would be extended by the city of St. Charles. But for instance, they have some minimum dwelling sizes of 3,000 square feet and 4,000 square feet, which is a lot more than in the counties.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning that because that's the resolution that was passed by the city of St. Charles for their intention for their future growth area. Obviously, any of that growth would have to be annexed into the city of St. Charles, and those would be the standards by which they would go by for annexation. But I thought I would mention that.
So if they annex a area that's from the county, is there anything procedurally the county has to do to allow that? Or are they allowed to just?
There is something procedurally that we do. We review under state law that it meets certain requirements, and one of them is that any annexed property must have 15% contiguous attachment to the existing county city boundaries.
Okay, thanks.
And so, no annexation in the county is I don't know what the right word is authorized or approved until the county registrar approves it. And the county registrar won't approve it until our internal staff review finds that it meets the state code.
Very good. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, do we want to vote on that tonight? Is that what we're going to get?
There's no voting that needs to take place.
Okay.
But I just wanted to mention that we did receive that resolution from the City of St. Charles. We're not asking that it be voted on or anything, but for future reference, that's the wishes that have been expressed by St. Charles City Council.
So they want us to consider land that abuts that to kind of fall into that same plan?
That plan of theirs is really their own plan, so when they annex, that's what they're looking for in terms of future development in the city. But I wanted to mention that because those intentions extend out into the unincorporated county. They're saying, as we grow, this is how we want to grow.
They'd like us
north.
to consider those areas of growth with those same,
They want to let us know that this is their intended growth pattern for north of the city of St. Charles.
okay.
Yeah. The last thing I would mention has to do with Highway N real quickly. I did want to let you know that City of O'Fallon, St. Charles County Community Development Department, St. Charles County Highway Department, and Roads and Traffic, the Road Board, and MoDOT, we're all collaborating on what the connections should be, the street connections, how integrated we want the streets to be between these different developments, what the connection points are for Highway N, whether someone has full access to Highway N or just partial access. For instance, maybe they can't turn left, maybe they only can turn right, things like that. So we are working cross-jurisdictionally on that very question. And we will share those thoughts with you when the plat comes before you, presumably at your September meeting.
Yeah, that would be helpful for us to know, for sure. Any other business?
So we're not voting on the adoption of Planning and Zoning Commission rules, procedures?
No, not tonight, but we would ask you to consider them at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. I don't know, we got about another hour here to kill. Anybody else have anything you want to talk about? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there anyone who seconds it?
Second.
Do we vote?
Yay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Good job.
That was a fun one.
It was a tough one tonight.